Stand up, New York Giant fans. Going to try to do these once a week. Like I said, last live stream when I was solo. Well, I did one also with Sam, but when I did a live stream, so we're going to try to do this once a week leading up into the offseason. And things will start to heat up a lot more late into July, early August once training camp gets underway. This week, the OTAs began for the New York Giants. So we got to see the rookies in the new uniforms. I was excited about that. I've learned in the past not to get too overly excited with things that you hear about rookie minicamp, OTAs, things like that. You're going to hear all positive things for the most part, specifically with the rookies. Let's see how they perform on the football field. But there were reports that came out that Wendell Robinson looked like he had good chemistry with Daniel Jones. Jones looks good. Not going to read too much into it, like I said, but it was exciting to see Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, who supposedly created an interception yesterday in which I think it was Xavier McKinney came up with the pick. Kayvon Thibodeau tipped it. It'll be exciting to see those guys at training camp when I hopefully get to go live in attendance and see it. But I'm not going to read too much into that, as of now. The other things that we got to talk about today, the New York Giants made a couple of minor roster moves. They buffed up the depth in the secondary. We'll talk about some of the players that the New York Giants brought in. I'll pull up a article from Giants.com giving us a little bit further insight into some of the players that the Giants brought on this football team. And also, the huge news of the day, James Bradberry has officially signed on with another football team. And to no surprise of many Giants fans, James Bradberry will be a Philadelphia Eagle. The Eagles, of course, had a need in that secondary at the cornerback spot specifically, and they went out there and they signed Bradberry for $10 million. I think it's 7.5 with some potential bonuses, which could work up to 10. He has to play at a near all-pro level, at least from what I heard. And the way I look at it is this. Do I think that James Bradberry may have been somewhat spiteful? It's certainly possible. I mean, there were rumors that came out that the New York Giants had trades in place to trade Bradberry, in which he would have gotten his full contract, and they would have had to work out a potential extension, couldn't come to terms on the deal. So he would have made more money probably had he just accepted a deal. Now, to James Bradberry's credit, last year, he did what he had to do to get the New York Giants under the salary cap to be able to bring in all these players, in which the New York Giants tried to go all out last year, and he probably felt like he wasn't treated fairly. I can't blame him for that. But at the same time, Joe Schoen had nothing to do with that. The Giants decided that Bradberry was not in the best long-term interest of this football team. They tried to work out a deal. Bradberry couldn't come to an extension with whatever teams they worked out deals with. We heard rumors about the Houston Texans, and supposedly there were multiple other teams. Didn't work out, and in the end, the Giants had to cut him because they weren't willing to backload the salary to keep him on this football team, and I can't blame Joe Schoen for that. But now, unfortunately, he ends up in the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk about that throughout the live stream. I think it's a good fit there. He's going to be the cornerback 2 opposite Darius Slay. It's only a 1-year deal for $10 million. So if you're an Eagles fan, you're probably excited about that. It gives you an opportunity to compete, at least to win the division. You still have Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, so I'm not picky to do much after that. But Bradberry's a solid pickup for the Eagles, no doubt about it. But it was something that I think we all came to terms with that was very likely that the Giants were going to lose Bradberry early on in the offseason. But let's say hello to a lot of people in the chat, man. I want to say hello to Kadarius Tony Stan, Cedric Smith. We've got Greg Wright in the chat. We got Rafael DeLune in the chat. Thank you to everybody for being here. We got Marcos in the chat, Afghanistan in the chat, Rafael DeLune in the chat, King Trizzy in the chat. The Philly Talk I know he's excited. Philly Talk podcast in the chat. I was on his channel a couple weeks ago, and he was excited about the fact that they may get Bradberry. And listen, I'm going to be unbiased. I think it's a good move for the Eagles. I'm not, I think it's a good move, and I think it adds to the rivalry. I don't think it's something that's going to help your team dramatically long-term. He may just be a 1-year option and potentially go out and draft your cornerback next year. But opposite Darius Slay, you have at least a serviceable secondary now, and that was a weakness. Much like the New York Giants' second cornerback going into the year, the Eagles had a major question mark there. They now solved that. They're a team that's looking to compete to potentially do some damage in the playoffs this year, so it makes sense for their football team. Nick DeWick says, can you tell my friend named Red that Philly sucks? Philly sucks. Philly sucks. They'll always suck. They got one Super Bowl. I say it all the time, man. Their most famous statue is of a fictitious movie character that came from New York. I mean, come on. Philly sucks. Grim man, thank you very much, man. We need to stop acting like this isn't the first year of a rebuild. Hopefully we are competitive, but ultimately 2022 is most likely a wash. Yeah, I mean, listen, I know fans never want to hear the word rebuild, and they talk about scenarios like the Cincinnati Bengals where they snapped their fingers and things worked out great. Well, I'll tell you what, if Daniel Jones becomes Joe Burrow, things could be accelerated here too. Ultimately, it comes down to the quarterback. And until such time the New York Giants find that guy, whether it's Jones or somebody else, they're going to have to continue to fill in the other holes in this roster. And the Giants looked at James Bradberry and they said, listen, he's an improvement for this year's team, but we're not thinking exclusively for this year. We're thinking about the future of this team, and we don't believe further committing salary cap to a player that we don't think is going to be in the best long-term interest of this football team. That's what it came down to. Joe Schoen wasn't just thinking about 2022, because anybody would have told you that James Bradberry would have been a better option for the New York Giants opposite of Dory Jackson for this year's team. But the question always was he going to make a lot of sense to commit 16, 17, $18 million or whatever it was going to cost if you backloaded the salary to the following year's roster? And Joe Schoen came to the conclusion that it did not for several reasons. Bradberry will be 30 entering 2023, right? Doesn't necessarily fit this scheme particularly well. They drafted a corner. I could definitely see them potentially signing a younger corner next year in free agency if they're not going to go the draft route early on. So the Giants have a lot of options going into next year. They have a clearer cap situation, and getting rid of Bradberry has a lot to do with that. Unfortunately, things did not work out, and the reason why the Giants are in this situation, I mean, let's just call it how it is. The reason the Giants are in this situation is because last year they took a big swing. They backloaded every contract under the sun, whether that be the signing of Kenny Golladay, whether that be Leonard Williams, whether that be backloading contracts from within this roster, players like James Bradberry, players like Logan Ryan. And some of that definitely had to do with the fact that it was a pandemic year, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Giants were taking a big swing. And when you take a big swing and you miss, that means you get a replacement at GM. That new GM is not going to want to further commit himself to players that he had nothing to do with that are making a lot of money. So that's why Bradberry's not here. And I think we have to accept as fans that Joe Schoen's going to build this team the way that he sees fit. Bradberry was never going to be back with the Giants. Now he's an Eagle. Now he's an enemy. Now I hope that Kadarius Toney rips him apart for the 2 weeks that we play him. Does it make the Eagles a better team this year? Yeah. I think it's an upgrade, obviously, at their second cornerback spot. But are they winning a Super Bowl? Calm down, Eagles fans. Calm down. Calm down. Matter of fact, I can make an argument that it may be in the Giants' best interest for the Eagles to win 10 games this year, because I would love it if the Eagles further committed themselves to Jalen Hurts. But that's just the way I'm thinking. I'm looking at a rich quarterback draft class next year. I'm saying to myself, yeah, if I got to eat a year in which the Eagles win 10 games, get eliminated in the first round, and they don't trade up to get a quarterback and they stick with Jalen Hurts, a guy who's basically Tim Tebow, in my opinion, with more athleticism, have at it. Jalen Hurts is not a guy that's going to win you Super Bowl, at least in my opinion. Tudo, man, thank you very much, man. Salute, Chris. Drop by to pay our proper respects for all the Giants fans around the world and slap and kick all the stinky boys losers out the door. Forget about it. Thank you very much, Tudo, man. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for popping in, buddy. And Yuri says, well, at least our edge rushers are going to help the secondary, and we don't have to be in zone all day. Well, I think we're going to need a combination. I think we're going to need I don't think we're going to be able to blitz as much as Don has done in the past, because we definitely do have some question marks in that secondary, but we're clearly going to be more aggressive. And if a player like Kayvon Thibodeau works out, of course, it's only going to help our secondary. But I think this year, and we're going to go over some of the acquisitions that the New York Giants made today in that secondary, but I think this year it's clearly obvious at that position, they're going to give the young players an opportunity as well. They should. This isn't a year we're going to win a Super Bowl. This is a year that you should evaluate your secondary. And the Giants have a lot of options that are going to compete in training camp for that spot. Aaron Robinson, Bradberry Williams, Darnay Holmes, potentially, even though I think he's better suited in the slot. Several other guys that could potentially get that spot, right? They brought in the guys we're going to talk about. I don't view them as starters. I view them as depth. The other thing that I really like about these two prospects before we dive further into them is the fact that they played in Don Wink Martindale's scheme. So they're familiar with what the Giants are going to do, and that could help some of the younger players on this roster, that are still trying to learn the scheme. So I think that had a lot to do with it as well, but we'll see what opportunity they get. And yeah, block the user. We'll put it on slow-mo if the guy continues to bother you guys. I always forget to do that before I go live, but unfortunately we have a troll who has no life, who comes in every stream I'm in and does this. I don't understand how he gets the time. Doesn't bother me, but I know he bothers some of the guys in the chat, so I apologize for that. It's the same situation when Vince Young said all-star team and had nothing to do with it. I mean, listen, I'm picking the Eagles. I was picking the Eagles before today happened to win the NFC East. But we'll see. Are we overrating them a bit? It's possible. Last year, we certainly underrated them a lot. They played a softer schedule. We'll see how they do when they play a little bit tougher schedule, but they're playing a soft schedule this year as well. With the divisions that we play outside of the NFC East. So I have the Eagles penciled in for 10 wins, maybe 11 if they could stay healthy on the line, which is their strength. I'm not going to disrespect the football team, but they don't scare me long term. And word, man, they very much is Eagles are going to be good this year. Sheesh. Yeah, they'll be good this year. But I don't think James Bradberry is the reason why they're going to be. I think that they were going to be a solid team before this. Let's see what we got. Philly complete garbage, period. let's get into into some of the player acquisitions today for the New York Giants. I wanted to go over it briefly with you guys. Read the article on Giants.com. Dan Salamone retweeted it. We'll dive into some of the players that the New York Giants brought in and just give my overall thoughts on it. And just learn a little bit more about them. So the Giants actually made 4 acquisitions today. And again, these guys are depth guys. These guys are going to be guys that are competing for back end spots on the roster, could be valuable special teams contributors. But let's read the article real quick. The Giants roster very much remains a work in progress, a fact demonstrated this morning when the team added 4 defensive players with NFL experience among a series of transactions. The newcomers are defensive ends Jalen Holmes, safety Henry Black, and cornerbacks Maurice Kennedy, I think that's how it's pronounced, I could be wrong, and Khalil Dorsey. Kennedy and Dorsey previously played for defensive coordinator Wink in Baltimore, which obviously is probably the main reason why we brought them in to begin with. And Holmes was the defensive line coach, Andre Patterson, in Minnesota. So there's another link. Andre Patterson, of course, the new defensive line coach for the Giants, did a great job with all those edge rushers while he was there with Minnesota for quite some time. In corresponding moves, the Giants terminated the contract of linebacker Trent Harris, waived quarterback Brian Lewerke, and defensive end Raymond Johnson III. Raymond Johnson III was an undrafted free agent we brought in last year. Same thing with Lewerke. So both those guys were cut in order to make room for the new acquisitions. In terms of what they bring to the table, I'm going to kind of skip over Holmes. I don't think he's going to be much of an impact. He's 6'5", 283. I think that the guys that we really want to hear about are the 2 corners we brought in, being that we're so thin there. Kennedy is 6'1", 200 pounds. He was a former 6th-round pick in 2016 by Baltimore, where he played his first 3+ seasons. In 5 years with the Ravens, Jets, and Dallas Cowboys, he's played 40 regular season games with 5 starts, and in 1 postseason game, he recorded 71 tackles, 58 solo, 1 interception, 6 passes defense, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. And I did read several articles in which they talked about how Kennedy was doing really well with the Dallas Cowboys last year while at training camp, but again, don't read too much into that. He did suffer an injury. He had a concussion last year, so he didn't really get on the field much, was mainly a special teams contributor, but they talked about his coverage skills and how they were impressed. Dorsey's 5'9", 181. I view him as a guy that's more than likely going to be brought in here for special teams purposes, but both these guys will provide his depth. I don't think either one of them are going to be starters. I think they're going to let the young guys compete for those spots. And, of course, they'll bring them in. Maybe they show the younger players the ropes. They're familiar with the scheme. That's the way I look at it. I still think that this is going to be probably Aaron Robinson's job, at least to start, but a lot of that will be determined from within camp. There's a lot of guys that could potentially take the job, and that, of course, will be one of the biggest battles. I think there's several big battles going into training camp for the Giants, the other one being the guard position, the left guard, I believe, right? So I think that'll be another big one between 3 or 4 players, but I think this will be a big competition, the cornerback opposite, obviously, Adoree Jackson. And what's going on, Wordman's popping in the stream? I'm going to put it on slow mode now because this guy's just annoying. So hold on one second, guys. I know he annoys you guys, so I apologize that I didn't do it before I went live. I'm just going to put it on slow mode now. So hold on one second. I'll just do it real quick. Takes me 2 seconds. Just got to figure out how to do it. I always forget. Customization. I think that's it. Maybe. Maybe not. Let me go to content, live. We click it. It's like pretty pathetic that I have to go to these lengths to slow down the chat for somebody who has no life at 1:30 p.m. just to annoy people. It's pathetic. Hold on one second. Let me go to slow mode real quick. How do I do this? I'm still trying to figure this out. I'm so bad with this YouTube thing. Customization. Here we go. Slow mode. We'll put it at We'll put it at 40 seconds. 30 seconds. That should be enough. There you go. Slow mode's on. There you go. So there you go, pathetic guy. You got to wait 30 seconds now to spam. So there you go, pathetic guy. Any update on Nick Gates? As far as Nick Gates goes, I mean, he's been at training camp. I haven't heard much. I did hear that Shane Lemieux was there, and I think practicing, so that's good news. Of course, he's coming off the injury. So we'll see. We'll take it one day at a time. I don't expect Nick Gates to be in the starting lineup, though, when the year starts. And Fabian says, congratulations to all the 2022 graduates. Yeah, congratulations for sure. And John Laterno. What's going on, man? LJ, man, glad to see you in the chat, man. Nation's in the chat, man. Glad to see you, too. John, I'm sure you're excited. You're a big Eagles fan. You went out and got James Bradberry. I'll tell you the book on Bradberry. He's a solid corner. I actually think Giants fans kind of undersold him, at least over the second half of last year. Struggled mightily in the first half. Got undressed by Terry McLaurin. They made adjustments. He played pretty well. And he's going to be a good cornerback, too, for your Eagles team this year. Stand up, the entertainer. Fly, Eagles, fly. With supposedly such easier schedule strength, is that much more encouraging for your success this season? listen, I've had this discussion with several fans, Jet fans in my Discord, NFL fans on Twitter. If you want to make an argument that the New York Giants can surprise this year, it's not because of the new, at least in my opinion, it's not because of the new coach. It's not because of the new scheme. That should improve the offense. But if the Giants are going to surprise this year, the biggest reason, at least in my opinion, is because of our schedule. Our strength of schedule is the weakest in the NFL. The Eagles are actually the second weakest because we play the same division. So the Eagles should win, in my opinion, 10 or 11 games this year. But yeah, if the Giants are to win 7 or 8 games, I think it has as much to do with the schedule as anything else. We play 2 of the weakest divisions in the entire NFL, and we'll see. We'll take it 1 week at a time. I mean, this year overall, it's always about the wins and losses, especially on game day. But overall this year, for me, it's about growth. It's about seeing growth throughout the course of the year, specifically on the offensive side of the football, the offensive line, the offensive play calling. Daniel Jones is a quarterback. So it's about seeing a much better team over the second half of the year as opposed to the first. I'm not going into this year with playoff or Super Bowl expectations, regardless of what our schedule is. But maybe I'll have a pleasant surprise. We'll see. But we do play a weak schedule. There's no doubt about it. Let's get into Chris Peace. He says he's probably a Philadelphia fan. Oh, more than likely. He's probably an Eagle fan or a Cowboy fan, but it is what it is. Or he's just a guy that tries to get rises out of people, which unfortunately you see a lot of that on the internet. Coaching should definitely help, Joe, but I think the schedule is the biggest. If we're going to win 8 games this year, it's going to be because of our schedule. Look at the teams we play. I mean, we play some of the worst teams in the entire NFL. And one, man, thank you very much. Yeah, Philly sucks. Dallas as well. And the D Commanders, wow, what a name. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think going in right now, I have the Eagles as a slight favorite in the NFC East, even over the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys took a lot of hits to their team this year. Obviously, losing La'el Collins is not going to help them, along with Amari Cooper. So we'll see how they perform this year. And I also think, and this is just my opinion, I could be completely wrong. The Cowboys could prove me completely wrong, much like they did last year. I didn't think they'd win 12 games last year. But I think what Dallas did last year on defense is unsustainable. Last year, over the first 8-10 games of the season, the Dallas Cowboys were on a record-setting pace for turnovers created, which was a major reason why the Dallas defense was as good as it was. They have a lot of holes in that defense. Trayvon Diggs is not the best at coverage. I don't expect the Cowboys to generate as many turnovers as they did last year. So I do think the defense takes at least a slight step back, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. They also played a really soft schedule last year. Again, not playing the hardest of schedules this year, but I do, unfortunately, and I hate the Eagles. I hate saying it. I do have the Eagles as a slight favorite in the division going into the year. And that was before James Bradberry. Hopefully we can make it 3-0 in London this year. See, I see a lot of people. Bringing up past history in London and saying, oh, the Giants are 2-0 in London. We should be able to win this year. Keep that streak going. Have we ever played Aaron Rodgers in London? We're playing the Green Bay Packers. I hope you're right. But I ain't going out on a limb saying it. Neil, man, thank you very much, man. What's going on, Neil, man? Always talk to Neil on Twitter. Good guy. Says, I'm excited for next season. If you compare today with week 18 last season, it's a shocking difference. We're moving in the right direction with the right people in charge. Go Big Blue. Yeah, I mean, listen, that's what this year is about for me, is realizing that we're taking a different direction, and that's refreshing. You know, I got into an argument with a guy on Twitter today, and again, I respect everybody's opinion. Not everybody's always going to agree with mine. I'm wrong a lot. That's what opinions are. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. But he basically was saying that the New York Giants should have tried to compete this year. They should have kept James Bradberry. The way I look at it is, listen, if you're going in a certain direction for 3 or 4 years and things aren't getting better, you need to change. You can't keep trying to, fill the holes in the boat. Sometimes you just got to get a new boat. And I think that's what Joe Schoen is doing. I think that's what the New York Giants are doing. It's a fresh start. They're not going to be able to trade every player away on this roster, but the players that they see they don't think are going to be part of the long-term solution here, they're going to get rid of. 20% of our rosters from this year's draft, we had 11 draft picks. That's 11 out of the 53 starters. We signed a bunch of, 1-year, short-year contracts that we're going to flip over next year. We're going to continue to build through the draft, and we're going to build this. We're going to build a young football team. I don't think we're done. I think we're going to continue to address that offensive line. We did a ton of it this offseason, getting guys like Glowinski. Obviously, in the draft, we drafted 3 offensive linemen. I think we're going to continue to address the interior portion of that line in upcoming drafts. And I think that's the right way to build a football team. I'm not saying first round, but I think they're going to continue to do it in the mid round and build this team the proper way. And the one thing that I could say that I'm optimistic about is if we do move off of Daniel Jones at year's end, whoever we bring in is going to be provided with a pretty good opportunity. I mean, you look at the offensive scheme that we have, it's pretty innovative. We now have 2 bookend tackles that we hope work out to be really good, which is very encouraging. Obviously, with Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas, that should only make the interior better. And we've got a couple of young weapons at the wide receiver spot. So what the new quarterback, if we do go that route in 2023, will inherit will be significantly better than what Daniel Jones inherited, which is the right way to start a rebuild and start a football team. So I like the direction we're headed in. In addition to that, you got a primary pass rusher, obviously with Kayvon Thibodeau on the other side. Let's see, which should only make the other members of that defense better. John Manny says, I know there's a lot that needs to happen. Would you see a 2017 season for my Eagles? And what percentage do you think Philly making the postseason? I would say 70, a high percentage are making the postseason, in my opinion. And maybe I'll be wrong. I didn't think you were making the postseason last year, but I would say at least 75, 80% you make the playoffs. The NFC is incredibly weak. I view as the favorites in the division. In terms of 2017, my percentage for the Eagles doing what they did in 2017. I'm gonna think, and you could clip this if I'm wrong, John. I'm gonna think for about a half a second. 0% chance you do what you did in 2017. Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. Not happening. I don't think your team's nearly as strong as that team. You were really strong in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Yet, in my opinion, a much better offensive play caller with that team. I am going to go 0. But do I think you're a playoff team? Absolutely. I don't see Jalen Hurts winning your Super Bowl anytime soon, though. So I'm going to go 0. I may go negative 2% on that. But I do think you're a playoff team, and maybe you could win a playoff game because the NFC is very weak. Duran, Matt, thank you very much, man. Cobra Commanders versus the G-Men, Joe's, the real America Team-O. Let's go, man. Thank you very much, man, for popping in the stream, man. I appreciate it. And but that's just my opinion. Maybe I'll be wrong. Let the Eagles and the Cowboys get the over-bloated headlines. Giants should quietly just do their work. And that's what we're doing. We're rebuilding. There's a high percentage the Eagles are going to suck. I hope, man. I hope they suck. I always hope they suck. Flex says if we win games with the O-line next year, defense secondary a need. Well, right now, Flex, this is before the year starts, so I don't know how this team's going to perform at every positional group. That includes quarterback, that includes cornerback, and there's a lot of options there that's going to potentially be the starter. But if you ask me, take an educated guess what our primary need's going to be, and we'll exclude the quarterback for now, outside of potentially the quarterback, because we got to see how Daniel Jones plays this year. But outside of the quarterback, what our primary needs are going to be going into next year, it starts at the corner position, at least in my opinion, unless one of these guys surprises us and plays great. But even if, let's say Aaron Robinson turns out to be a really good corner, or at least an average to slightly above average CB2, even if that happens, cornerback is still a need for this football team because Adoree Jackson's only under contract for another year after this year. So cornerback to me is still going to be a focal point going into next offseason. The question will be for me, do they address it in free agency or do they address it in the draft? And I think it'll come down to which free agents are available and where we're picking in the draft and whether or not we need a quarterback. But I think that's definitely one of the primary needs for this football team. They're going to continue to need to address the offensive line, the interior offensive line. We probably are going to need another weapon on the outside. This team's far from complete. We still have a lot of building to do, but we're getting started. And I do think we're headed in the right direction. Also, safety will probably be a need as well. So the Giants definitely have a lot of needs right now, but it's 1 year at a time, and we continue to build this team the proper way. Let's see. Watch when Bradberry gets toasted. I think you meant to say when Bradberry gets toasted by us. I hope so, man. Listen, we saw Bradberry get toasted enough last year by several teams, especially early on in the season, and hopefully we're able to do that against him. What's going on, X-Man, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Let's see. Is Adoree going to be motivated with Ryan and Bradberry gone? I mean, my question with Adoree isn't motivation. It isn't talent. I think Adoree is a good corner. I'm not going to say great. I think he's a good corner. But my major question mark with Adoree Jackson, one, he's going to get added responsibility now this year. Make no mistake about it. He's going to be man press, and he's going to be the cornerback 1. So how much is that potentially going to impact his play? But the bigger question I have with Adoree Jackson, more so than anything else, can he stay healthy? You're talking about a guy who's had significant injury troubles throughout the majority of his career. So if he goes down, I mean, who do we got in that secondary? So I think depth, even more so than the starters, is an even bigger question mark with the New York Giants secondary going into this year. But we knew going into the year we were going to have holes. Yeah, Adoree definitely needs to step up, man. What's going on, Jeff? Man, thanks for popping in the stream, man. And John, he said, thoughts on my Phillies and do they scare the Mets? I'm actually going to the Mets game today, which is why I started this a little earlier than I normally do. I'm leaving at 4:30. I think I'm going to have good seats, so I'm looking forward to going to it. But do your Phillies scare my Mets? No. I mean, who knows? The Mets squander leads all the time every year, but no. I mean, your Phillies have been playing pretty good as of late. They have a really good lineup. They can put runs on the board, but no. I think it's the Mets division to lose. It's about health, and we've started to get a couple of injuries, but no, I think the Mets are the class of the division right now. So no, they don't scare me. If I had to pick one team that scares me, it's probably the Braves. Before the Phillies. Let's see what we got here. Adoree is a dog. His only problem has ever been health. Well, yeah. I think Adoree's solid. I do. I think Adoree's probably a top 20 corner, 25 corner. I think he's solid. I think he had a 75 PFF grade last year. But again, now he's being asked to be the cornerback 1. We'll see how he responds. Yeah, Scherzer's pitching today, so I'm looking forward to it. And hope you're feeling better, Matthew. Joe said, bleed blue. We're still going to wreck the Eagles. Listen, Joe, the one thing that I'm looking for, I mean, obviously I want to make the playoffs. I want to win the Super Bowl every year. But if we're not going to make the playoffs, I am praying that week 18 is a deciding game for the Philadelphia Eagles, whether or not they get in, because I would love to knock them out of the playoffs. That would be great. So I'm looking forward to that. By the way, guys, I forgot the schedule. I know we play the Eagles week 18. Is that game home or away? Because if that game means something for the Eagles, I would love to be in attendance for it. Karan says, I think we have the potential to win 9 to 10 games. Teams like Seattle and Chicago are bad. Also, the quarterback Kentucky looks nice. Yeah, you're talking about Levi. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I know exactly who you're talking about. He's got a big arm. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in this year's draft class if you look at them, but we still have another year to analyze them. Some are going to rise, some are going to fall. You see that every year. If you were to look back to last year, people were saying Sam Howell was undeniably going to be the quarterback 1. He dropped. You see it every year. Guys rise, guys fall. So I think it's still a little bit too early to analyze where these guys are going to be going in the draft until such time we see how they play this year. But yeah, a lot of people have been talking about him. The guy from Kentucky. He's got a big arm. Week 15 and 18. Yeah, I know we play in week 18. Is it home? It's away? All right, so I'm not going to Philadelphia. Bookhead Tackle says, we'll have cap room to add to the secondary next year. Unfortunately, we were in cap hell this year. The reality is this year is about preparing for the next 2, maybe 1. Yeah, listen, matter of fact, let's take a quick look, just for fun, at potential free agents next year at the cornerback position. Let me take a quick look, because I'm curious myself in terms of what cornerbacks we could potentially be looking at. And we don't know what their markets are going to be. We don't know how they're going to play this year, but I'm just curious to see which potential corners we could look at with the pending cap space that we're going to have. All right, let's pull this up real quick, because I do think cornerback is definitely a possibility in terms of free agency where we could target. Let's see. As of now, these are the free agent corners. Let me get rid of these ads. For the New York Giants, Marcus Peters from Baltimore. He's going to be 30, though, or I think he's 30 now. So not the youngest of names. I don't know what his market will be. I don't even know how he's been doing the last couple of years. I think he's a solid player. Jonathan Jones, Anthony Brown, Patrick Peterson, again, 33, though. Eli Apple, we could bring him back. How about DeAndre Baker? What do you guys think about that? They got a club option. He's only going to be 25. I'm obviously kidding. Don't take me seriously with that. But those are a couple of names. Artie Burns, Byron Smith, Rocky Sin. So those are some of the potential corners that the New York Giants could potentially target for agency next year, because I do think that is going to be a position that we're going to be looking to target. Let's see. Yeah, no, we don't. No, we definitely don't want Eli Apple back. That's for sure. Let's see. Kadarius Toney is not at Giants. So is that true? I have not seen that report. I don't know if it is or isn't. Maybe somebody in the chat could confirm that. We won 4 games last year. Talking about we're going to win 11 next year. Who said 11? I don't know who said 11. Maybe you're talking to somebody in the chat. I certainly didn't say 11. Let's get Eli. Yeah, no thanks. Yeah, I know Tyrone. He's a bum. I want nothing to do with him. I was kidding. What's up there, Sam? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Who's going to be our number 2? I'm going to probably make a video on that. I was actually going over the names yesterday, preparing to potentially make a video. And then I said, I'm going to go live today because I want to try to go live once a week with you guys to talk about the Giants during the dead times of the offseason. But I'm probably going to make a video on that. But, I mean, listen, I think it's going to be a competition in training camp. I think the most obvious names are Darius Williams, Darnay Holmes, who I think is more of a slot guy. The 2 guys we brought in, Obviously, Canady and I forgot the other guy off the top of my head. Aaron Robinson, Cordell Flott. I think those are the guys that are going to be competing for that second cornerback spot. More than likely, if I had to pick a favorite right now, I'd say Robinson. There's been rumors we've been working him on the outside. He only has 2 starts to his name, though. And when you look at the options at cornerback 2 right now for the New York Giants, Bradberry Williams has never started a game. He had 1 tackle last year. Granted, he had an injury against the Cowboys. Darnay Holmes has 9 starts, but obviously in the slot, not on the outside. Canady, or however it's pronounced, has 4 starts throughout his entire career. He was drafted, I think, in 2016. Aaron Robinson has 2 starts, both in the slot, and Cordell Flott's a rookie. So they're all wet behind the ears. I guess the other option you could say is Love, but Love, I think, is going to be penciled in to be the starting safety. So those are the options at the cornerback 2 spot, at least as of now. And don't expect a knight in shining armor to come and save us at that position. They're going to let the young guys battle it out, and I think one of those guys will come out to be the starter. And I agree. I think Flott, there's a good chance that Flott eventually is going to be the starting cornerback 2 at some point this year. I agree with that. I don't think he'll be the starting corner to start the year. And maybe one of these free agents, if they don't feel Aaron Robinson is capable of doing it, will be the starter on the outside. But if I had to guess, yeah, I think they drafted Flott for a reason. They didn't draft Aaron Robinson. I like Aaron Robinson. I do think Aaron Robinson's going to play well in this scheme. I think he's going to break out. But they may eventually shift him to the slot if they start him on the outside. I think they drafted Flott for a reason. I do think at some point this year, he will get a look. And that's what this year is about, analyzing our younger players. So I agree with you. Tudo, he says, hypothetically speaking, if we play against Karen Rodgers, I'll get him to like thunder lightning strike and put him in wheelchairs after the first hit. All I need is half a chance. Tudo, man, let's get you out there, man. Wow, our secondary. Yeah, listen, our secondary is an unknown right now. It's the biggest weakness on this team going into the year, at least in terms of being an unknown. I mean, maybe some Giants fans will convince themselves that these guys may break out, and maybe they will. And hopefully they do. But I do think right now, yes, it's the biggest hole on this football team going into the year. We were paying a corner next year. More than likely, AJ Kareem, I agree with you. I think we're either going to draft one early or sign one, more than likely. Tane, I hope you enjoy the game, and I hope so too. We need a W today. We got Max on the hill. When you're rebuilding, getting young players is going to be a lot. Yeah, exactly, Joe. I agree with you. Bobby D says, which is weird because the secondary has been the one bright spot for this team for years. Yeah, I don't even know if I'd consider it a bright spot. I mean, it's been a bright spot in comparison to the other parts of this roster. Because when you look at this roster right now, I mean, be honest with yourself. And I mean, pre-draft. After the draft, I think you could certainly argue the tackles are a strength. The edge rusher is a potential strength, depending on how these young players pan out. But before the draft, I couldn't point to one positional group on this roster that was above average. It's just not. And last year, our cornerback play, I would say, was satisfactory. It was decent. It wasn't great, but it wasn't a weakness. I'll agree with you on that. But it certainly wasn't like an elite secondary. Let's put it that way. I love the Kayvon pick, but I kind of wish we got Sauce, not going to lie. Well, yeah, Sauce was never an option. But, yeah, I think the Giants would have leaned Sauce. I've said that a couple of times now. I think the Giants would have went towards Sauce had he been available. Of course, he was off the board. Kryak says, do you think Washington could make some noise this year? Yeah, I think they could. I mean, listen, the NFC, look at the NFC. I mean, let's go over the teams real quick. The NFC is so weak. Not just our division, but the conference as a whole. I mean, like let me go to the teams real quick. Which one of the? I mean, yeah. Do I think they can win 9 games within this conference if their defense stays relatively healthy and Carson Wentz plays decent? Yeah. I mean, let's exclude our division. In the NFC North, outside of the Packers and maybe the Vikings, which to me are still a question mark, the Bears and Lions aren't going to make the playoffs. The NFC South, you got the Bucs, and then everybody else is a major question mark for me. I don't know about the Saints, Falcons, and Panthers. And the NFC West, you got the Rams, maybe the Niners. I like the Niners. I like Trey Lance, but he's still a question mark. Cardinals are a question mark, and Seattle sucks. So the NFC, there's not a lot of world beaters. So could I see Washington winning 8 or 9 games? Sure, why not? They had a lot of injuries last year like us. They got a big improvement at quarterback. They could. I'd probably have them around 8 wins going into the year. Let's see. I don't know about that take. What about the Washington? I mean, I did 7 or 8 wins. That's probably where I have them. But would I be shocked if they win 9 games? No, I wouldn't be shocked. We have to give them young players to show their potential. Plus, we have to see. The NFC East has the best defensive front sevens. That's a big bonus. I wouldn't sleep on any team in the NFC East based on defense alone. I'd have to think about it, but yeah, I mean, listen, they've all got, I mean, we'll see how Chase Young plays this year. Of course, coming off the injury, he hasn't quite lived up to the draft type. But yeah, I mean, Washington, that's known to be the strength of their team. Right now, that's probably the strength of our team, outside of potentially the tackle spot, and obviously Micah Parsons with Dallas. So yeah, and the Eagles. The Eagles are strong on the defensive line as well. So yeah, it's a good point. This is the easiest path to the Super Bowl in the NFC that I can remember. Too bad we're worse than everyone else. Yeah, I mean, to me, the NFC, if I had to pick three, if I look at the teams that I view as like potential Super Bowl teams in the NFC, I think it's the Bucks. You still got to give Brady his props, and they have some talent there, and the conference overall is weak. I think it's the Rams. And everybody else is a question mark. If Trey Lance works out, like I said, I'd put the 49ers in that conversation as well. And I guess you got to throw the Packers a bone, but the Packers always seem to come up short. So the NFC is incredibly weak. Let's see. Do you think Tony and Robinson could be a dynamic duo? I mean, let me see him play. I'm not going to be in the business anymore of coming on here and spreading false hope. I got to see results and let me see how they play. Let me see how they utilize them in the offensive scheme. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do with those two players. I do think we have the type of offensive play caller that could maximize their potential. I'll say that, but I'm not going to put expectations on two players who have not accomplished anything yet in the NFL. That's my overall opinion on that. So I think Tony's got potential for sure. I think he could be really good, but he's got to stay on the field. He's got to stay committed to football. So we'll see. He's got a lot of talent. And the same thing for Robinson. I got to see how he plays in his first year. Zach, man, thank you for being a member. He says, I just want to see improvement. That's what this year's about for me too, man. That's what this year's about for me too. Improvement. Just getting better week in and week out. That's what it's about for me as well. Are you excited about the Knicks' future? I mean, I wanted the first pick. But as far as the Knicks go, I mean, let's see who they draft. Let's see how it turns out. The problem with the Knicks is they don't have a superstar. And in the NBA, you're not going to win championships without having superstars. And you need multiple superstars. I'm hoping RJ Barrett could turn into at least a borderline superstar. But outside of that, I don't think Randall's going to be a star here. We have some young potential, but I think a lot of those guys could be used as potential trade chips in the future. Guys like Quickly, guys like Toppin, potential future draft picks. But until such time the New York Knicks get a couple of stars here, they're not going to be title contenders. That's just the nature of the sport. Hopefully they do. We'll see. There's been rumors about Donovan Mitchell. Maybe they'll land on one of these. We'll get lucky with one of these draft picks, but we got to start getting superstars here before this team becomes a legitimate threat. Let's see what we got here. Dable said Tony has been showing up to everything recently as of last week, I think. So there you go. I haven't heard anything in terms of him not showing up. There were reports at the beginning of the voluntary rookie camp, whatever it was, voluntary mini camps, that he was not showing up. But I have not heard anything since. So to my knowledge, he's showing up. He's doing what he's supposed to do. Bradberry's a sucker for that. What, for going to the Eagles? Listen, I could see it from both perspectives. I could see it like if I take my New York Giants cap off and I put myself in James Bradberry's shoes, and I don't like it as Giants fan. He's enemy number one. He's a Philadelphia Eagle. But putting it in James Bradberry's shoes, James Bradberry last year backloaded his contract to help the Giants out, to allow them to sign guys like Adoree Jackson, to allow them to sign guys like Leonard Williams and everybody else who they signed, right? They backloaded his contract. So he did that to create more space for this football team. He did so thinking that that he was going to remain on with this football team. A new GM comes in, so I can't blame Joe Schoen, but at the same time, could I see him being a little upset with the situation? Sure. But at the same time, he has to understand that Joe Schoen's a new GM. He's going to build the team the way that he sees fit. It sucks that he chose the Eagles. And do I think that some of it certainly could be out of spite? 100%. I think it is, at least part of it. He may view it as a good scheme fit and a landing spot where he potentially could grab a big contract next year if he plays well, being in a good situation, being that he's asked to be a CB2. But I do think some of it is certainly out of spite, no doubt about it. He could have made more money had he accepted some of those trades that reportedly came out where he would have gotten a guaranteed $10 million. Here he's only going to get 10, I think 7.5 with the possibility of reaching 10, not to mention that they were trying to work out contract extensions that supposedly Bradberry didn't like. And maybe he kind of overvalued his market. Who knows? Regardless, he's a Philadelphia Eagle, and he's the enemy. And when he's wearing that uniform, I hate him, period. So I could understand it slightly from his perspective, not to mention the New York Giants dragged it out. They didn't really give him much of an opportunity to be a free agent. But at the same time, if Joe Shane was fielding offers, what do you think the media and the fan base would have said? Like, if it was common knowledge, as reported, has come out from Jordan Renan, has come out from several other beat reporters, if there is common knowledge that the New York Giants were receiving offers for James Bradberry, which obviously they couldn't work out due to the fact that James Bradberry wasn't willing to work out an extension, and they released him in like March, what do you think the reaction from the fan base would have been? They would have flipped out. They would have said, how does Joe Shane cut James Bradberry when he's potentially fielding offers? We got offers. Things didn't work out. We cut him late into the process, and now he's an Eagle. Period. End of story. I don't blame Joe Shane for trying to get something for him. But it's not a fully guaranteed $10 million. I think it's 7.5 with incentives that could reach up to 10, and he has to play at like a near all pro level. That's at least what Jordan Renan said. I will try to read your last comment, Mike. Hold on one second. What'd you say? Entertainer, how about the undrafted free agent from Kentucky, Yusuf Corker? Yeah, I mean, I thought when they signed him, rather, the UDFA, I thought he had a decent shot to make this roster because we're relatively thin at that position. He had a 5th-round draft grade. So I think he's one of the 4 or 5 guys that I think probably have a pretty good opportunity to make this team. And I wouldn't be surprised if 3, 4 undrafted free agents make this team. Traditionally speaking, usually like 1 will make the team. But I think there's a decent shot 3 or 4 make this team because it's a brand new GM. He's building the team the way he sees fit. Obviously, we lost a lot of players to free agency. We didn't bring in a lot of big-time difference makers in free agency. So I think some of these younger players, they're cheap. They obviously see something in them. I think some of these guys, Corker being one of them, stand a pretty good shot to make the team. What's going on, man, Tom? Man, I appreciate you for popping in, man. That can't be worse, dude. Our 2-minute defense was the worst in the NFL last year. We gave up. I always forget the number. I think it was like 79 or to nothing or 82 to nothing in the final 2 minutes of the first half. And as much as I did not dislike Patrick Graham, and I think sometimes the fan base was a little too hard on him, who else could that fall on? It's not like the defense is winded at the end of the first half. So that was not a good showing last year by the New York Giants. I think it was record-breaking in a bad way. That can't be worse this year. It just can't be. Let's see what we got here. Not sure if you already discussed it, but that undrafted free agent. Yeah, I talked about him 2 weeks ago. As you know, when I briefly went over the undrafted free agents that the Giants brought in. You're talking about the running back from I think it's North Carolina State, if I'm not mistaken. No, Florida State, I think it is. He was the guy when I looked into him, when I read up on him, when I watched some of his highlights, that I thought stood the best chance to make this team out of the undrafted free agents. And supposedly he's looked great in camp. Again, I'm not going to read too much into it. They don't even have the pads on yet, but supposedly he's looked pretty good. We're thin at that position. We don't really have much outside of the top 2 running backs on our roster. So I think he's got a solid chance to make this team. Brightwell was drafted by the previous regime, 6th-round pick, could easily be cut. So I think he's got a pretty good shot to make this team. We'll see if he does. Let's see. Jared Matthews says, this is Saquon's year. I like Saquon this year. I've said that. I've not been shy of saying that. He's got to stay healthy. But I think everything sets up for Saquon to have a really good year this year. If you ask me of the skill position players, which player could have the surprise year, or I don't even know what would be considered a surprise, but the big leap in production, I would say him. I think everything sets up for him to have a good year. He's now 2 years removed from the injury. You now have Evan Neal on the right side. You've got 2 really strong tackles to run behind. I think things set up favorable for Saquon Barkley this year. I really do. Not to mention, I think they'll scheme him more properly. I think he'll be used better in this offense. I think he's going to have a lot of catches. His rookie year, I think he had like 90 catches. I don't know if he's going to touch that, but I think he's going to be used a lot in the passing game, and I think he's going to have a good year if he can remain on the field and stay healthy. Let's see. Yeah, we got rid of John Ross. As we should. The guy's an injury waiting to happen. Do you think Flott will end up at Yes, I do. I not to start the year, though. Not to start the year. But I think at some point you're going to see him at cornerback. Yes, I think he'll be starting at some point this year. UB says 0-4 is Daniel Jones safe. I mean, here's my opinion on the matter. And everybody's got their own opinions, UB. For me, what good does putting Tyrod Taylor in if we start 0-4? We're not going to the playoffs at that point, especially when you look at our schedule. We play a softer schedule. For me, the way I would look at it, UB, if we start 0-4, I would look at it, okay, I know what Taylor is. He's a career backup. How does that benefit the future of this football team to put him in after we know it's pretty much conclusive we're not going to the playoffs? If we start 0-4, I could at least look at it like, okay, Jones may take 2, 3, 4 weeks in a new scheme to learn it and grow and get better. So to me, yeah, I think outside of an injury, I don't see Jones getting replaced that early into the season. I think maybe by week 10 or 11, if he's really bad, which hopefully he's not, that'd be horrible news. If Tyrod Taylor sees the football field this year and Jones is not hurt, that's horrible news for the Giants, at least in my opinion. Taylor's a backup. That's what he is. That's why they brought him in here to be. I think he's going to mentor the future quarterback if they move on from Jones. But I think Jones will start at least the first half of the year, at least. And if things go south after that, maybe you will see Taylor at some point if Jones is not hurt. But I don't see how it does any good for this football team if Taylor ends up being in that scenario. If we're 0-4, I don't see how it does much good for this football team. That's just my opinion on the matter, though. D-Nice says, this team is young. I expect double talent and new schemes from Dable and Martindale. Hey, I'm excited, man. I'm excited about the new coaches. And outside of the schedule, I think that's the biggest argument for why this team could surprise this year, is the scheme and the coaching, and hoping that that's a significant upgrade. Bradberry definitely wants. Of course he does. Of course he does. And you know the Giants are going to want revenge on him too. I think Seals Jones is our starting tight end. I wouldn't. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. I'm hoping, and again, we won't know until training camp, but I'm hoping the tight end one is the guy that we drafted. That's who I hope gets the job. Seals Jones, to me, not really much of a blocker. He's known as a pass-catching threat. He's going to see the field. We're incredibly thin at that position. But the guy's had injuries throughout his entire career. He's not the long-term answer. I don't know about that one. I think the Giants are going to let the kids play. I think that I don't know why the names escaped me off the top of my head, but I think the tight end we drafted, Bellinger, I think he's got a good chance to start. And supposedly, and again, don't read into it too much during training camp and OTAs and so on and so forth, but supposedly Bellinger's looked really good so far. So we'll see. But I think Bellinger's going to be the starter, or at least he's going to get significant playing time. And Delius is exactly, Chris, makes no sense to play Taylor this season. Like I said, I think there's a point in the season where it could make sense, but certainly not early in the season. Certainly not early in the season. John, man, thank you very much, man. What's up, Chris? Thanks for bringing the afternoon content. Amani Tumor. Yeah, one of my subscribers actually gave this to me about a year ago, so I always try to say thank you to him. By the way, can you get Patricia to change that background shower curtain? I'm going to have to talk to Patricia about it. I'm going to be on her channel hopefully soon. She told me soon I'm going to be on her channel. I don't know what day, but I'll be on there soon. When I'm on there, I'll ask her. I'll ask her to change the shower curtain. And I'm looking forward to meeting Patricia at training camp if they allow the public to go. Andre says, our pass rush going to make up for our secondary. I mean, I think that's the hope. I think that's the hope going into the year is exactly that. What we hope is a stronger pass rush make up for what we think going into the year is going to be a weakness in the secondary. The other bit of good news, and let me pull up the Giants schedule so I know the exact order. But the other bit of good news, at least in my opinion, when just talking exclusively about the Giants secondary, the other bit of good news, I do think that the schedule works out relatively favorable. I'm going to pull up the schedule real quick for you guys. I'm sure most guys remember this, but I'm going to pull up the schedule so you guys see what I'm seeing. I think the schedule works out relatively favorable early on in the season, meaning that we're not going up against like world beaters at the quarterback position. We're not going up against the best offenses in the league. So maybe the young secondary, learns the ropes a little bit and they get better throughout the course of the season. But the Titans, their bread and butter is the run game, right? I'm not saying that they're not going to try to throw on us. They have some weapons. Tannehill's not the greatest quarterback, but their bread and butter is the run game. That's where they're going to try to attack us. Carolina, I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be shredding us. Cowboys are obviously going to be challenging. They have a good offense. The Chicago Bears, I mean, come on. So, and then you get the Packers. But the first 4 weeks, we have three offenses that I would not consider high-powered. So hopefully over the first 4 or 5 weeks, the secondary improves. And by the time they need to get to where they need to be, when we start versus some of the better offenses, which really don't take place until we don't play a lot of good offenses at all. Whole year, really. I mean, what quarterbacks, guys, when you look at this schedule, outside of Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson and I guess Dak Prescott, which quarterbacks scare you? I mean, Darnold, Fields, Trevor Lawrence could be okay. Seattle, we don't even know who the hell their quarterback is. Houston, Davis Mills, Jared Goff. I'm not scared, guys. Jalen Hurts, I don't care the weapons that he got. We saw how he did against us last year. The guy can't throw if you stop the run. So I don't know. I think at least our schedule sets up at least somewhat favorable for our weakness. I still think it's a weakness. I still think we're going to get picked apart at times. Durant says, like Uncle Steve, Maris should offer any Giants wide receiver a new car if they dust Bradberry for a 20. Let's go, man. I'm completely on board with that. I'm completely on board with that, Duran. I'm not scared of any of these teams. Hey, man, we'll see, Raphael. Sam Darnold stinks, yeah. I hope Darius Slay calls them the dream team so history can... That'd be great. Let's see. Not sure why I'm in here right now, but Ravens fan here. Well, I appreciate you for checking out the channel. Chuck Clark seems like a great fit with Wink. Well, that's why you're here. Maybe you're interested in your former defensive coordinator, what he's going to do with the New York Giants. Maybe y'all have a safety that I'm missing, but seems like he'd be a good fit. Yeah, the Giants right now are pretty thin at the safety spot. Julian Love right now is at least penciled in to be the starter, obviously opposite Xavier McKinney, who's one of our best young players and one of the best young safeties probably in football. But yeah, outside of McKinney, we definitely have a potential hole there for sure. And people have brought up his name as a possibility, obviously due to the fact that he has ties to Wink and the fact that that's a relatively thin position. We did also draft the safety in the 4th round, who we'll see how he performs in training camp. Maybe he has an opportunity to crack the roster. What's going on there, Ian, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Jalen Hurts is better than Daniel Jones statistically. I mean, that may be true. He still doesn't scare me. Like, when I'm talking about oppositions, I love how people just bring up Daniel Jones. I'm talking about our defense. Daniel Jones has nothing to do with our defense. Jalen Hurts as a quarterback does not scare me. When we had Dave Brown as a quarterback, as a Giants fan, I didn't think about, oh, Jake Plummer's better than Dave Brown. No, I said to myself, our defense could hold their own against Jake Plummer. So just when I'm talking, people always bring that up. Oh, Daniel Jones isn't as good as this guy. I'm talking about our defense. I'm talking about the perspective of our defense. Jalen Hurts does not scare me. Does not scare me from in terms of our defense. And Anthony says, our D and O line are so much improved. I don't see how we can't go 9 to 10 wins realistically. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, I wouldn't expect it. At least me. I'm not going to you're expecting that. I think a lot of things have to break right for us to win 9 games. And that starts with health. We convince ourselves as fans, and I'm just as guilty of it. I'm a fan. I love this football team. But we convince ourselves as fans every year that when we look at the schedule, and you should, you're a fan, you love your team. If they, we see 9 or 10 wins, but we never, I at least am guilty of it. We always get hurt. We have one of the most injury depleted rosters in football, and we're not deep. So when we do sustain injuries, we're not able to overcome it, at least in recent years. So yeah, I mean, if everything bounces our way, we can win 9 or 10 games if we stay healthy. I think that's possible, but recent history would suggest we're not going to. But that's not to say I'm not telling you not to go into the year hopeful and hoping that things can bounce our way. But also, I would at least suggest going into the year cautiously optimistic. With all the turnover on this roster, new coaching staff, and how thin we are. We have a lot of young players that we're going to be depending on in these roles. Michael says, can we watch DJ highlights? Daniel Jones? Not to knock DJ from last year, but if I showed you the DJ highlights from last year, it would probably be about 13 seconds. I mean, no, I'm not knocking DJ. I'm rooting for DJ. I hope DJ does really well this year. And I do think he looked pretty good the first 4 weeks last year before we had all of our injuries. And hopefully with the improved scheme, he takes a big step up. But maybe I will show some DJ highlights throughout the stream. But I'm hoping that this year's highlight clip is much longer than last year's highlight clip. Let's put it that way. So I do think Daniel Jones could have a good year this year, but he's got to prove it. Daniel Jones undefeated against Hurts. That's true. 2022, the return of the Giants run game. We'll see. I think, listen, maybe I'll be wrong. And I'm not saying we're going to completely abandon the run, but I think the Giants are going to throw the ball more this year. I would be surprised if they don't. I mean, Dable's come out and said that he wants to unleash Daniel Jones. He wants basically to give Jones the ability to win and lose football games next year, as he should. We need to find out what we have at quarterback. I'm not saying that we're not going to run the ball, and I'm not saying that we may not be more effective running the ball this year. We should be. I mean, with Evan Neal in the roster, we should be, and hopefully we do a better job in terms of offensive play calling. But I think you're going to see a little bit more of an aerial attack this year by the New York Giants. But we'll see. The one thing that I expect this year, when I step back and I look at the construction of our roster in terms of an offense, and I think I said this in the last stream or maybe 2 streams ago, I think the Giants are going to get the ball out really quick. You know, if you remember when McAdoo came to the Giants as the offensive play caller, it was like 2 seconds to get the ball out of Eli's hands. I think it's going to be very similar with Daniel Jones. I think that's going to be the mindset because we have guys now in this receiving core, and when you factor in Saquon Barkley, who could create mismatches and create quick separation. And we have an offensive play caller who's at least known to be good in terms of scheming up an offense, in terms of creating a quick opportunities for these wide receivers. So I think you're going to see a lot of quick hitters in this offense next year. Don't make Daniel Jones think too much. Drop back, guys open, boom, get it out of your hand. I think that's going to be that, at least my opinion. That I expect to see a lot of that this year with this offense. I think they're going to try to get the ball out quick, but it's going to be much more innovative. It's not going to be, 9-yard curl routes every throw. I think you're going to see a lot of, pre-snap motion, getting guys open quick and getting the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands and allowing these playmakers to make plays after the catch. Xerox says, "Morning, sir. Who cries first, A.J. Brown or Tyreek Hill? Hurts and Tua under a lot of pressure?" Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to say, if I'm going to say one of them cries, I would say it would have to be Tyreek Hill. For the simple reason, it's not like A.J. Brown was tearing it up last year, and he played in what was a run-first offense with Tennessee. You have to figure that the Eagles, if they're smart, should stay committed to that. That was their strength the previous year. Not to say that they're not going to throw a bit more, but I would think if somebody's going to be complaining, it's going to be Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is going from arguably the best offense in football with arguably the best quarterback in football to a quarterback who doesn't have much of an arm in Tua Tagovailoa. So I think if one of them is going to cry, I would pencil probably Tyreek Hill to be the guy that will be doing the complaining. And I think that's one of the more interesting dynamics going into next year in terms of the overall offense after what the Dolphins did, because I'm curious to see what the chat thinks. Do you guys think that's going to work out? There's a lot of uncertainty with that offense, but there's also, in my opinion, a lot of potential. They added Mike McDaniel, who, as the head coach, who a lot of people think is a really good offensive play caller. They have 2 explosive weapons, arguably the 2 most explosive weapons in football, with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Arguably the 2 most explosive wide receivers in the league. But you have a quarterback who kind of reminds me of Chad Pennington, who is accurate within 20 to 25 yards, but he's not going to sling the rock. So I'm really intrigued to see how that offense works. Do you guys think that that's going to play out well? I don't know. I'm really interested to see what Mike McDaniel dials up with that offense. But obviously 2 really good weapons, but I think they're going to use Hill in a different way in which Kansas City did, because obviously Tua is not going to sling it the way that Pat Mahomes does. Bob, man, thank you very much, man. First play of 2022, Jones drops back, he looks, he cooks, launches a 50-yard bomb to Golladay. That'd be awesome. He would have one more touchdown in the first play of the year than he did all of last season. That'd be awesome, man. Let's see. Yuri says, by week 3, A.J. Brown going to throw his helmet on the sideline. We'll see, man. Listen, I think Hill's more likely to flip out, though, because I think if they're smart, if A.J. Brown's smart, he's going to know his role in the offense. He's going to get his targets, but he shouldn't expect to catch for 1,400 yards. Tyreek Hill is going from a situation where he got pelleted with targets. He had a quarterback that could throw 75 yards, and now he's going to a situation where it's completely different. Let's see. Bradberry is now enemy number 1. I mean, he's an Eagle. I'm in complete agreement with you on that. Let's see what Delia has to say. I'm curious. I always like to talk a little bit of broad NFL. Delia says, I really think that the Dolphins offense is going to thrive. Waddle and Hill can get defensive short crossers, which plays into his hands. When the defense thinks they've got that covered, burn them deep. I could see it working out very well. I just don't know how much Tua is going to be able to hit them deep. He doesn't have the biggest of arms, but I do see a scenario similar to what I think the Giants are going to do with Jones. Not to say that Jones and Tua's arm strength are equal. I think Jones has a bigger arm than Tua, but I think they're going to run a similar offense to what the Giants are going to try to do with their wide receivers, guys that could create quick separation. What I said about the Giants, I see a similar thing with the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's going to be interesting to see Tyreek Hill in like a different kind of role than what he's been utilized in the past. Let's see. And Jook says, has your opinion on Hurts changed from the beginning of 2021? No. I still think Hurts is a limited quarterback. That's not to say Hurts can't win this year. I think he can. I think the Eagles have given him a great support system. They have a very good offensive line when they can remain healthy, which they were able to do last year. They have great weapons at the wide receiver position now. So, and they have a great ground attack. So, and if his legs are he gets the job done with his legs, he's a dual threat quarterback. But in terms of being a thrower, I think you saw it last year in the playoffs. You saw it last year against the New York Giants when we played them. Not to say we have a great defense. When you're able to keep him in the pocket, Jalen Hurts is a limited thrower of the football. So, no, my opinion has not changed on him. I don't think he's the long-term answer for the Philadelphia Eagles. I really don't. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. And as a Giants fan, I think the best-case scenario for the New York Giants in terms of the Eagles, because I always think about my divisional opponents at the end of the year, is for Jalen Hurts to convince the Eagles that he's worth giving more of a leash, maybe even an extension, because I don't view Jalen Hurts as a Super Bowl quarterback. I just don't. But could he have a successful year in terms of winning games with that team? Absolutely. Do I think he's ever going to be Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, the likes of those guys? Absolutely not. No, I think he's a limited quarterback in terms of throwing the football. John, I'm going to be at the Mets game, so I'll probably record it, maybe watch the end of it when I get home, but I'm going to be at the Mets game tonight. Hurts also had the most help in terms of blocking, wide receiver separation. There's a stat that showed me he had the most. Yeah, I mean, listen, last year when you saw him go up against the Bucks did a good job in terms of forcing him to throw the football. What happened? Same thing with the Giants last year. Like I said, what happened? Problem is we don't know how strong Jones's arm is now. Neck is a big part of arm strength. I'm not too worried about it. I'm in terms of that. I don't think it's going to limit him, but we'll see throughout the course of the year. I don't think the Giants are going to put him out there if they feel like that's going to limit him in terms of throwing the football. Giants will suffer this year on the back end of our defense. We have to hope and pray that our players can be competitive. Well, yeah, that's obviously the biggest question mark on defense going into the year. Can you all imagine if the G-men sign OBJ now? Need money, though, but, well, he's going to be hurt. He's not even going to start the year, right? I would imagine. He got hurt in the Super Bowl, so he's going to be hurt. He's not if he does play this year, it will not be at the start of the season. What was your reaction to the Knicks landing the 11th? I wasn't pissed. I mean, it was what they were supposed to land, so I wasn't pissed. I was just hoping to be excited, and obviously I wasn't, but I wasn't pissed. I think they had a 91% chance of picking at either 11 or 12. So they got 11, which I think overall was a 78% chance. So it was what they were supposed to get. Xerox, he says, is Dable going to be calling the offense? I think not. And I've been asked this question a lot, and hopefully we get an answer sooner than later, maybe when training camp starts. And that's a question that the press should ask him more. They did ask him earlier on in the offseason, but I think Kafka is going to call the plays. I think Dable's going to be heavily involved, but I think Kafka is going to call the plays. I don't think Kafka would have left Kansas City for a job with any team if he wasn't going to get an opportunity to call the plays. I wouldn't if I was Kafka. He was in high demand, and he was the guy that could potentially replace Eric Bieniemy. Andy Reid could be on the way out sooner or later. He was in a great situation with Pat Mahomes. I don't think Kafka would have taken this job if he wasn't going to get an opportunity to call the plays. He's looking at this as an opportunity to potentially further his career. So I think Kafka will call the plays, but I think Dable's going to have a heavy influence on the offense. I think they'll work together. Chris, did you see that video of Tariq? No, I did not. Tana, pull up some Bryce Young highlights because DJ probably won't. We'll talk about quarterbacks later in the season. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it. Right now, I'm not concerned with Bryce Young. I'm not concerned with any quarterback. We don't know how they're going to perform in college this year. We don't know what draft pick we're going to have. I'll worry about that next offseason if that becomes a topic in terms of the quarterback. Not to say I'm not going to look at these guys throughout the course of the season, but right now I'm focused on the 2022 roster. And right now, Daniel Jones is the quarterback, and right now, Daniel Jones has a lot more help around him, and hopefully takes a big step this year. But if he doesn't, Bryce Young will be a name that you hear about. What's going on there, Anthony? Man, thanks for popping in the stream, man. Who are the targets for players to be cut next year? I'll pull up the Giants salary cap next year. We'll go over it real quick. I get asked this question from time to time. Leonard Williams is a clear potential cut, just based off the money that they could save and the amount of money that he's due, and the fact that they didn't extend him, which they could have if they thought he was going to be a big part of the future. to potentially retain a guy like James Bradberry. The fact that all that came to fruition leads me to believe that there's at least a strong possibility that Leonard Williams will be cut next year, because when you look at how much you're going to save, I mean, it's a lot of money. But it all depends. It all depends on the free agency market and so on and so forth. But Leonard Williams next year is due to make $26 million. If they cut him, it's only $8 million. So you're saving $18 million. That's a lot of money. That could potentially go towards an extension for Andrew Thomas, things like that. So he's clearly a possible cut. Kenny Golladay would only save you a little under 7. It's possible. He's due 21.4. He's 14.7 a cut, but not as likely as a guy like Leonard Williams just because of cap savings alone. Dory Jackson, it would save you 9 if you cut him, 19 to pay him. That'll be an interesting decision. We'll see how he plays this year, but my guess is as thin as we are at that cornerback spot, more than likely he's going to be back, especially being that we have a lot more cap flexibility next year. And the fact that they backloaded the salary too. When you factor that in, that was a Joe Schoen decision. Joe Schoen decided to backload Adoree Jackson. So the fact he decided to do that leads me to believe that they feel Adoree's going to be on the football team next year. Andrew Thomas, obviously not. Mark Lewinsky, obviously not with the cap hit. Kayvon, no. Tyrod, no. Too big of a cap hit there. Evan Neal, no. Gano, probably not. It only saves you a little over under $3 million, and he's a pretty good player. Shepard, at least according to this, is going to cost you as much to cut him as to keep him. I don't know how accurate that is. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I'll have to look more into that. But the easiest name here to me is obviously Leonard Williams. I think there's I would say at least a 50% chance he isn't with the Giants next year, based off the fact that our GM never brought him in to begin with. And John says, who do you think wins the left guard job? It's been musical chairs last year. The right side looks pretty good for now. And do you think AT will have a Pro Bowl year? Yeah, John, man. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. I thank you for being a member for 13 months. As far as the left guard position, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest battles going into training camp. Let me pull up the Giants roster real quick. I mean, my guess is they're probably going to go with one of the veterans. But let's pull up the Giants roster real quick and talk about the interior part of the offensive line. I think it'll be one of the veterans we brought in, though. I don't think Azudu's going to start the year. I think at some point he may get an opportunity, but I don't think he's going to be the opening day starter for this football team at the guard spot. You still have Bredesen on this team, who's probably going to be cut. Shane Lemieux, there's a chance he'll be cut. I don't think he'll be starting. They don't have the updated roster here. Hold on. Let me pull up. This is probably better. But it's probably a competition between 4 or 5 players. Let me go to the guard real quick. Okay. Max Garcia is the name you hear a lot. A lot of people say he's got a good chance to start. He's 30 years old. Veteran experience. He's not very good. I think he had like a PFF grade in the 50s last year. Limited experience as a starter, but good chance he could start the year due to the fact that he has some experience. Feliciano's obviously going to be the starting center, or at least that's what we think right now. Azudu, the rookie, could compete for the spot. You have Jamil Douglas. Like I said, Ben Bredesen, McKeithen. I think he's more of a depth guy for now. So if I had to guess right now, and this could change based off of a performance in training camp, but if I had to guess right now, I'd probably go with the veteran Max Garcia at least to start the year. And at some point, maybe Azudu gets that opportunity. But I don't think Azudu's going to start the year, but I could be wrong. Brandon said, thank you for being a member for 19 months. Says, Tana, I'm going to both Eagles games this year. The first I'll ever go to an NFL game. Any suggestion on seats? I mean, I'm rooting for Azudu, by the way. I hope Azudu's the starter, but I'm leaning that they'll go with Garcia at least to start the year. As far as suggestions for seats, listen, I'm not a season ticket holder. I don't go to every Giants game, so it's not like I've seen every vantage point. But when it comes to a football game, I think the most important thing, similar to a basketball game, when you're going to it, get in the middle of the field. I think that's the most important thing. I'm curious to see the people in the chat, their opinion on this. If it's me, if I'm going to a football game, if I'll take the last row in the stadium at the 50-yard line over sitting behind in the end zone. For me, the best vantage point, of course, is in the middle of the field. So I think that's the most important thing. Fabian says, hope you enjoy the game and get that W. Go Mets, man. Thank you so much for popping in, Fabian, man. I appreciate it. I'm sure I will. Hopefully the Mets get a win today. They need it with Max on there. You can't waste those starts. They wasted the last one. And John, man, thank you very much. On the cap note, who's going to provide us some cap room? I like Gates too, but why are we holding on to a third-string center who was hurt? That's a great question, and they may still cut him. It's a great question because it could save us $2.5 million, but it's not like the Giants are going to do a whole lot of spending at this point anyway. I was completely on board with potentially cutting a guy like Gates if it meant we could keep Bradberry. Bradberry, of course, isn't here anymore. So we saved $10 or $11 million going that route. I think Gates has a chance to make it. They'll probably put him on the pup to start the year, but I'm agreeing with you. That's a good amount of money for a guy that's probably not going to play for the team this year. But obviously he's well respected in that locker room. He's a captain. I thought they'd at least try to work something out, maybe cut him and bring him back on a much more cost-effective deal. At least as of now, doesn't appear to be the case. And maybe he'll surprise all of us and he'll start the year in terms of being a backup lineman, but I doubt it. I don't think he's going to start the year. Too many meatheads in the upper decks. Yeah, I mean, in the upper corners, you get the whole view. Okay, for me, I always look for the middle of the field, whether it be basketball or football. Joe says, worry about next year. This year hasn't even started yet. Talking about I don't know who you're referring to, Tyler. Tyrone says Gates has a medical clause. Cutting him would only save $250. Well, there you go. Makes no sense. I did not know that, Tyrone. So you just educated me. I did not know that. Lemieux or Gates at left guard. I think. All right. Here's my hot take, and a lot of people ask me who's your potential surprise cut. I think Shane Lemieux is going to get cut. That's my hot take. I don't think Shane Lemieux makes this team. Maybe I'm wrong. He's a former fifth-round pick. He's been in the league for 2 years. He's already had an injury. Was not drafted by our current GM. We just drafted 2 guards. We signed like 4 guards in free agency. I think there's a very decent possibility that Shane Lemieux doesn't even make the team. I think he could be cut. I definitely don't think he's going to start. I'd be surprised if he starts. General Man, what's going on, man? Thanks for popping in, buddy. Yeah, the aisle seat's also important for sure, Tim Underwood. Good call, man. Go to the bathroom, get a beer whenever you want. Stand up. What's going on there, sports influencer, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. Our starting left guard might not be on a roster right now. That's also possible. Hopefully not, though. Because these guys are going to be working, building chemistry throughout training camp and the preseason and so on and so forth. Hopefully we don't pick up a starter a week or two before the season starts that's cut from another team. I agree. I think those are the 2 favorites, Hazelnut, and I'd slightly favor Garcia, at least as of now. Now, of course, if Azudu plays great, maybe he gets the job right out of the gate. What are your thoughts about Bradberry? Sean, I mean, my thoughts about Bradberry, when I look at it from his perspective, I can understand it, but it's from a Giants fan, he's public enemy number 1. He's a Philadelphia Eagle. And do I think he chose the Eagles out of spite? 100%, at least partially. It's certainly possible he may view them as a situation where he could flourish and potentially get a pretty good contract next year, being that maybe he fits the scheme relatively well, and now he's being asked to be a CB2. So, but do I think he at least partially chose the Eagles because of what the Giants did? Absolutely. And I don't blame the Giants for doing what they did. Joe Shane took over as the GM, had no attachments to James Bradberry, tried to get something for him on the trade market. It was a tough situation for both parties. But he's public enemy number 1. I can't stand James Bradberry. He's an Eagle. Can't stand him. And he chose him. Okay? He could have accepted a trade somewhere else. He didn't do it. He chose the Eagles. He sought the Eagles. So, yeah. I hate James Bradberry right now. He's a Philadelphia Eagle. And stand up. What's going on, Pete Parker, man? What's up, Chad? What's going on, Pete, man? Good to see you, man. Gowinski's definitely going to be one of the starters at guard. 100%. I know, just wondering if he played. I don't know who you're referring to, Anthony. I hope Austin Allen makes the team. He's 6'9", just has to stand in the end zone and put his arms up. I mean, he could. We're really thin at that position. What do you guys think? Do you think the Giants are going to go with 3 tight ends or 4 tight ends? Because right now I'm leaning, we might go with 3. Because we know that the Giants aren't going to run a ton of 2 tight end sets, but they could easily go with 4. If they go with 3, I don't think he has a chance. If they go with 4, he's got a shot. Jokes, man, he says, is it just me, or have we stopped considering Barkley as a major factor on this team since he is barely in the media? And what do you think his future is with us? I don't. And I do think some of the fan base is soured on him. Some of it obviously due to the fact that some people can't get past the fact that we drafted him 2nd overall, which has nothing to do with Barkley. Some of it obviously due to the fact of his production, which I think you could at least mainly factor into the fact that he's been hurt. The major injury that he had 2 years, he was, of course, riddled with injuries in 2019. So I think the fan base is soured on him. I think Barkley is set up to have a great year this year. I've said that several times, factoring in everything. All the improvements on this roster, the scheme, the fact that he's now 2 years removed from the ACL and MCL tear, and Evan Neal helps. So I think he's set up to have a good year. I think he'll be used better this year. In terms of his long-term prospects with the team, I love Saquon Barkley. I was the first one to buy his jersey, or one of the first ones to buy his jersey. I bought it the day after we drafted him. But I think his long-term prospects with this team, no, I don't see it. I don't think he's going to be a Giant much longer. As I keep saying with a lot of these other guys, Joe Shane did not draft him. Joe Shane is a positional value guy. We saw that in the draft this year. He has said that. Running back is not going to be at the highest point of his priority in terms of doling out a lot of cap space. So if Barkley has a really good year this year, I don't think Shane's going to give him a healthy extension. He might franchise tag him, but I don't think Barkley's going to be here long-term with the Giants. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, but you're asking me to predict, and you're asking for my opinion. I think the Giants are going to go with more of a running back by committee type approach and try to fix up that offensive line. That's my overall opinion on it. But do I think Barkley could be really good this year? Yeah, I think Barkley's a good player. What's up there, Sean? Man, thanks for popping in, man. They will go. Yeah, a lot of people think if they go 3 tight ends, I don't think Austin Allen's making the team. I think they'll go with the guy they brought in from Houston. They'll go with Seals Jones, and they'll go with Bellinger if they go with 3. If I had to guess. What did I think of Ozark's ending? I didn't like it. And I was a big fan of Ozark Clocks. If you've been in my street, yeah, you know that, obviously, if you're asking me. I love TV show. I just caught up on Saul, by the way. That show's freaking awesome. Better Call Saul. But Ozark, I liked it. It was kind of like a poor man's Breaking Bad, but it was really good. I'm not trying to discount the show, but the ending sucked. The ending, ruined the show for me. It went from an 8.5 to a 6. The ending was horrible. What's going on there, Matthew Stein, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. And Joe says, if the price is what and preseason is about, that's where you earn your job. Yeah, sure. Who will be your surprise player this year? Surprise player this year? Huh. My surprise player this year. Does Barkley count as a surprise? Because he shouldn't. So I don't want to say him. Who's a player that I think could be a lot better than people think? How about Leonard Williams? Does he count? Because I feel like a lot of fans are down on him. And I think with the additions to this defense, I could see Leonard Williams having a really big year for the Giants. 9, 10 sacks. I could see him having a good year. I'm trying to think realistically. I'll throw in Bellinger too. I could see him having a productive rookie year. 450, 500 yards. I could see something like that if he gets the tight end 1 spot. Yeah. But I guess I'll go Leonard. I don't know if that qualifies as a surprise, but I guess I'll go Leonard. Let's see. And Independent Man, thank you for remember for 29 months, says, Mark Bavaro is my favorite all-time Giant, and he became an Eagle at the end. I think we go 3 tight ends. I wish Bradberry failure get what you should. He's an Eagle. Everybody should wish failure for Eagles. Zany says, Tana just came out of school and happened to see the title. James, yeah, he went to the Eagles. Bradberry's an Eagle. It's a contract upwards of $10 million. He's not guaranteed the $10 million. I think it's about 7.5 with incentives that could reach up to $10 million. 1-year deal. So he stays within the division. Secondary should surprise as well. They have chemistry. I hope so, man. Isaiah says DJ. All right, guys. Okay. Let me ask the chat. Let me get the chat's estimation of Daniel Jones this year. Let's just assume he plays 17 games, which I am not projecting. But when I do a stat projection, I'm going to do it based off of a 17-game projection. How many touchdowns do you think Daniel Jones throws this year? Based off of 17 games. How many touchdowns do you think he throws this year? By the way, I think he plays 11 or 12. History suggests that. Good chance he gets hurt. But if he stays healthy and plays 17 games, how many touchdowns do you think he throws this year? Alex says 20. Matthew Stein says around 30. Ryan Cannon says 24. Lucas says 29. Chris P says 35. Michael Talking Sports says 28, 17, 29, 28. Eddie says DJ is trash. Amazing Guy says 25, 28. So a lot of people got him in the mid-20s, 25, 26, 32, 30 to 35. Big Daddy says 30. Raphael says 30 plus. 15. See, I'm going to disagree with that. 11? I'm going to disagree with that. He's going to throw more than that. 11? If Dan Jones plays 17 games, he's going to throw 11 touchdowns? I don't like throwing stat projections out there. And like I said, I'm not going to go into the year expecting for him to play all 17 games. But I do think with the improvements to the scheme and the offensive line, I think he'll have a more productive year. Just for the simple reason, I think the weapons will play better too. Like guys like Barkley, so on and so forth. And maybe I'm being too optimistic. I'm not going to come out with crazy expectations. But do I think mid-20s is crazy? No. Let me ask you this, guys, because I do think this is possible. Let me show you these stats. I'm not going to show you the name. I'm going to show. Well, you're going to know it when you see the team. But let me show you these stats. You're going to know when you see the team. Do you think Daniel Jones could put up these stats if he plays 17 games, which he won't? But if he does, you think he could do that? You think he could throw 23 touchdowns and 14 picks in 17 games and have a 94 QB rating and throw for 4,800? Maybe not the 4,800 yards, but I do think the Giants are going to throw more this year. Maybe 4,200, 4,300. Do you think he could do that? Because I think he can. I don't think that's crazy to think he could do that. And Bryce, man, thank you very much, man. What was your record prediction? 7 wins, Bryce. I got us right now at 7 wins. I got us at 7-10. Because that guy got $40 million a year. And I'm scared as a Giants fan that if Jones does something like that and we win 8 games and he throws the similar stats to that, we'll see. We'll see how the year plays out. But that was Carr. He threw 23 touchdowns, 14 picks, 4,800 yards with a 94 QB rating. The guy got $40 million a year, whatever he got. So do I think that's out of the question? If Jones was able to play 17 games, he could do something like that? No, I don't. I don't. And let's see what we got here. The line is much better for sure, Jukes. And Jack says, I agree, Chris. That's my biggest fear of the future. Yeah, we'll see what happens at the end of the year, man. He's definitely better than Jason Garrett or, of course, our new offensive play caller, for sure. And Jedi, good to see you. I think you might have tried to say hello earlier. I missed you. And John Kim says, you think McKinney will have above or under 7 interceptions? I mean, interceptions are so hard to predict year in and year out. Like, it's so hard to predict. It's a stat that fluctuates so much, but he is a playmaker. We're going to have a more aggressive defense. He'll have his opportunities. If I had to pick a number, I'd probably be conservative and say 5 like last year, maybe 6. 7's probably a little bit too high, but he could. He's a playmaker for sure, and we have a defense that's going to send more blitzes at the quarterback. So you would hope that means potentially more turnovers created. But I'd probably go with about the same as last year. I'd probably go with 5, maybe 6. Yeah, I mean, look, Matthew, of course, we're going to have to win games. But if he put up stats like that and we won 9 games like the Raiders did last year, you going to give Jones that kind of contract? What's up there, Lake Noda, man? Thanks for popping in the stream, man. When will Tibbs break Strand's sack record? I ain't taking that for granted. I never, okay? And I hope he does. But you got to give Michael Strand respect, man. And I know, what was it, 22 and a half? The last one shouldn't have counted. We all know that. I remember sitting I was at Dave & Buster's with my dad. I remember watching it, and Brett Favre fell to the ground and gave Michael Strand that record-breaking sack. 22 and a half sacks. That's going to be tough to be top. You got to give Strand some respect. Put some respect on his name. Let's see what we got. DJ threw 24 touchdowns his rookie year in 12 games. 17 games will be 41. I ain't going to go that. Dave, from your lips to God's ears. I need Jones. This is what I need from Jones. for me to be like, okay, I'm good with giving him a franchise tag. I'm good with committing another year to him. Starts with wins. Okay, I don't care what stats he puts up this year, and it may not be his fault. But if you win 6 or 7 games this year and you're picking near the top of the draft and you have an opportunity to draft the quarterback and reset the rookie clock, you're doing it. At that point, Daniel Jones would have had a 6-win season, 4, whatever it was. We haven't won many games with him at quarterback. So it starts with wins. He's got to win at least 8 or 9 games, regardless of the surrounding factors. And he's got to do what he did in his rookie year without the fumbles. He needs to give me a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio without the fumbles. You got to give me 27, 28 touchdowns, 13, 14 picks, win 8 or 9 games, and we'll open up the conversation. Until he does something like that, no conversation. And Big Eric says, Giants fans, salty as hell. I agree they're not a quarterback stat, but super. If just be realistic about it. If the Giants win 5 or 6 games this year, regardless of how Jones does, and you have the opportunity, are you going to pay Jones a big contract? Because you have to. He's a free agent. So you're going to pay him a big contract over 5 or 6 wins? Or are you going to reset the rookie clock and draft the quarterback on a rookie salary? You're going to draft the quarterback. You're absolutely going to. So even if it may not be his fault, Jones has to put himself in a situation where the Giants don't have the opportunity to draft his replacement this year. And that means wins. He's got to win football games. Which team that made the playoffs last year could you see being the most disappointing this season? I got either the Chiefs or the Cowboys. Chiefs for sure. And it has as much to do with the division as anything else. I think the fact they play in the AFC West, it's a much improved division. Obviously, the loss of Tyreek Hill. I think the Chiefs are probably my number one potential disappointment team. Now, they still may make the playoffs, but I could see them winning like 9 games. I'm probably going to have them at 10, but I'm lowering my expectations a little bit for the Chiefs this year. NFC, disappointing team, Cowboys. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. They won 12 games last year. I think they win 9. I think they take a 3-game step back. So I will go Cowboys and Chiefs as the most disappointing teams this year. Let's see what we got here. No, if Jones throws 30 touchdowns, let's see what we got. Jerry says the stat I'm really interested in is pass plays over 20-plus yards. I'll be disappointed if there wasn't a huge increase over. Well, there has to be. It can't be lower. It can't be lower. Let me take a quick look here. I know they've been low since Jason Garrett's been the offensive play caller there, but let me see real quick. And granted, he didn't play in every game. Jones only what he missed 6 games, so he didn't play in every game. But Daniel Jones last year, not even on the first page, which makes sense because he missed a lot of time. He had 24 throws that were over 20 yards in terms of completed, which ranks low. And again, he missed some time. I understand that. 40-yard throws, he only had 5. So to put that in perspective, Matthew Stafford had 18, Justin Herbert had 15, Burrow 15, Mahomes 11. So yeah, he needs more big plays this year for sure. And you have to hope that the improved scheme around him creates that. Andrew Thomas catches 4 touchdowns this year. No chance. But I hope, man. Let's see. Bookend Tackle says it depends if we truly played great and we lost because defense couldn't hold. Then you can franchise tag unless there's a quarterback the staff thinks is Herbert Burrow. Well, yeah, that's what I mean, Bookend. If you're in a position to draft a guy that you feel could, and it doesn't mean he will be, but if you're in a position to reset the rookie clock, coming off a 6-win year, regardless of how Jones played, in my opinion, you should never draft a quarterback that high unless you feel at least they have the possibility of being a guy like Justin Herbert. Not saying that he's going to be, but if you feel like he has the potential to be, you shouldn't invest a high pick in him. But if the Giants feel there is a quarterback like that, you're taking him next year if you have the opportunity to do it, if you win 6 games, regardless of the quarterback's performance. Taco, man, thank you for a member for 9 months. Says, hey, Chris, maybe next year you go to the NBA draft lottery so we get the first pick. I don't know if I'd bring luck, man. I hope. If we get the Saints game, DJ, you paying him Aziz and Tibbs how many sacks? What do you mean? If I get the Saints game every week? Yeah, at that point I'm paying him. He played great in that game. Can he do it consistently? But yeah, he played great in that game. Aziz and Tibbs, I'll say about 16. I mean, I hope it's a lot more, but I'll say about 16 between Aziz and Thibodeau. I'll say they average 8. Maybe one gets 9, one gets 7. But I'll say 16. I think that's a fair projection. Who's the backup to Hurts? I think it's still the guy they got from Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken, Anthony. What's his name? Minshew? I think he's still the backup. What's going on there, Wolf? Chris Jones says, Chris, would you consider the Golladay signing as a bust if he doesn't have a bounce back? Of course. We paid him $72 million. I mean, he's already teetering on being a bust. The guy didn't catch a touchdown last year. May not all be his fault, but 100%. I mean, the whole reasoning for signing Golladay was to evaluate Daniel Jones. We didn't get an opportunity to do that last year. He was not a number 1 wide receiver. He wasn't close. So, yeah, Golladay, for me to even start to get on the other side of the fence, that Golladay was not a horrible signing, regardless of the factors, he needs to play the majority of this year, and he's got to have 9 or 10 touchdowns. He's got to have a big year. So, yes, if he has a bad year this year, 100%. Chris, do you think the Giants should draft General Booty? Yeah. What's going on, LA Sports? Up, Chris? Good to see you. It's been a while. Hopefully, I can get you on my... Yeah, man, for sure, man. Chris Hoffman. Let's see. Tana, does this draft we have remind you of Ogden Ray Lewis draft the Ravens had? I'm not going to put those kind of expectations on. I mean, I hope, but you're talking about 2 of the greatest players of all time. Ogden's one of the greatest tackles in the history of football, and Ray Lewis one of the greatest linebackers. So, I mean, I hope, but I ain't putting those kind of expectations on it. They got a lot to prove before they enter that. KG wasn't a bust in Detroit. He wasn't. But the question is he worth the money that we paid him? No, he's not. He's not. Regardless of the factors, if he's not performing at a high level, he's not worth $18 million a year. At least for the Giants. The money could have been better spent elsewhere so far. Chris, do you feel better about the Robinson pick now than you thought about? Yeah. I'm not in love with it. I never hated it. I was surprised by it initially, but I never hated it. I'm taking a wait-and-see approach. I mean, especially with picks outside of the first round. It's a new regime. Give these guys an opportunity to bring in their guys. I'm not going to say it's going to be great. Let's see him play. No, Chris, I'm serious. Oklahoma signed quarterback general. I know you're serious, but I want nothing to do with the guy. So I saw it on Twitter. Super Taj, man, what's going on, man? No, I'm not too surprised by it, to be honest with you. We have a lot of edge rushers. So, no, I'm not too surprised by it. He was an undrafted free agent that we brought in last year. You know, when you look right now, I mean, you've got obviously, I mean, let's look at the Giants depth chart real quick. I'm not surprised by it, but let me look at the edge rushers. You've got, I mean, you still got guys like Cam Brown, Carter Coughlin, who's more of a middle linebacker at this point, but you still have those guys. Let me go over the positions real quick. Obviously, our draft pick. Let's see. Why is it not? Oh, this is salary cap. That's why. Let me go over the Giants depth chart real quick. But no, I'm not surprised by it. For a quick answer for you, I'm not surprised by it. Giants edge. You've got Aziz Jimenez, who's still on the team. I suppose maybe you could have cut him for cap savings, but he's above him on the depth chart. Ellerson Smith. They brought in the kid Fox from North Carolina State, the undrafted free agent. Carter Coughlin. Even though he's more of a middle linebacker, I think, Fox. You've got, obviously, Kayvon Thibodeau, Quincy Roche, Cam Brown. And they don't even have listed, what's his name? Oh, no, they do. I'm sorry, Ellerson Smith. So, no, I'm not too surprised by it. He was an undrafted free agent, and he didn't really do much last year. What's going on, David Lopez, man? Thanks for popping in, man. What linebacker do I think will be next to Martinez? I mean, right now, if I had to guess, I would have to lean Tate Crowder. I mean, he was the starter last year, right, Chris? So I'm going to lean Tate Crowder as of now. I mean, maybe one of the rookies beats him out, but as of now, I'll lean Tate Crowder. And that's if Martinez is ready to go week 1. Jihad Ward's, isn't he a DT, Jihad Ward? I thought Johnson was an edge. He's a DT. My mistake then. I didn't think he was an edge. I'm confused. Hold on. He's D-line, but wasn't he an edge when we brought him in? Maybe he played a little bit on the interior, but I thought he was an edge. All right, let's see. Who do you, he's only 270 pounds. Danvers says, who do you think starts at left? I got asked that earlier. I think it'll be Garcia. What's going on, Boyd, man? Thanks for popping in, man. Galladay and that's a joke, obviously. And Goblins, man, thank you very much. He says, how do I recover from this tragedy? I mean, listen, I'm pissed off. I'm a Giants fan. I'm pissed off. You never like to see your players go play for another team and help them out, especially when you didn't trade them to them. We didn't even get any compensation for them. But at the end of the day, the way I'm going to get over it and recover from it, it's not about this year for me with this football team. It's about the future. And I don't think it ever made a lot of sense to keep Bradberry here long term. The Giants tried to trade him. There was no market. They couldn't agree with an extension with the team that they were trading him to. So they did what they had to do. They didn't want to back out any salaries. They didn't want to keep Bradberry here long term. They didn't want to affect their future. And they wanted to keep the cap space open. So that's my outlook on it. Regardless of what team he signed with, I think it was the proper decision by the Giants to move off of Bradberry, as much as that may suck, rather than having to backload salaries. As a fan, after the draft, when I saw it played out, yeah, I was like, I want to try to find a way to keep him on this football team. But do I think it was smart to further damage our cap situation to retain a guy that the Giants probably never thought was going to be a part of this team after this year? No. That's why I always thought they were going to move off of Bradberry. It sucks that he's an Eagle. But I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be there very long. It's a one-year deal. If he has a great year, he'll probably sign elsewhere. But it helps their team this year. Do I think they're going to win a Super Bowl? No. But it helps their team this year. I'm not going to deny that. What's up there, Descent, man? Thanks for popping in. Best option, regardless, make the playoffs because of defense and run attack, and Hurts still sucks, and the team thinks I would love it if that happens. Matthew Stein says, why, Chris, you wouldn't want to wear a Giants jersey that says booty on? Matt says, why did the Giants sign, I think two, you meant to say, the number two new cornerbacks? That's stupid. We already have young talent at cornerback. No, I don't think it's stupid at all, Matt, personally. They didn't sign these, at least in my opinion, they didn't sign these guys to be starters. They signed these guys to be competition from within camp. They need depth at the position. We don't have a lot of cornerbacks to begin with, not to mention both of the players we brought in have experience in Don Wink Martindale's defense. So if nothing else, they could provide leadership and experience in this scheme for the young cornerbacks on this roster. I don't think either one of them is going to start. They signed these guys to fill out the roster. You need depth in the secondary, especially after we lost Bradberry. So I think they're bringing camp bodies, guys that can compete for back-end spots in this secondary. Potentially could be special teams contributors. But I don't think it's a bad move. I think they're still going to develop the younger players on this roster. I saw CBS as the Giants go. I mean, I've seen different projections all over. I've seen some people in their power rankings, they have the Giants at, I forgot what power ranking it was. I think it was ESPN. They had the Giants at like 22. I'm like, wow, that's pretty high. And they had somebody San Francisco at like 24, and it was on ESPN. I was like, are you kidding me? If I was doing a power rankings right now, I don't know the exact spot, but I'd probably have the Giants between 25 and 28. That's probably where I'd have them, somewhere in that ballpark. But the good news is they play a lot of teams that I'd have in that same area. So they have some opportunities to win some football games. I would say right now, take Crowder, Taco. I don't remember if you asked me that or somebody else asked me that right now, but I would lean Crowder, at least going into camp, and maybe one of the rookies passes him. Have you heard of grabbing joint practice? I have not. I know we did that the last couple of years with Judge, which was something new we had not done in a while, but I have not heard anything regarding that. Where do you rank us in I would say third or fourth going in for this year, third or fourth. I can't put us above the Eagles and the Cowboys. I'd probably have us, yeah. I mean, my fan says third. My brain says probably fourth, but we could easily finish third. We could easily finish second. I mean, things happen in the NFL. Nobody thought the Eagles would finish second last year, but my rankings going in, I definitely can't have us any higher than 3. Let's see. Chris, did you see that Joe Judge No, I did not, Taco. I'd prefer never to see another Joe Judge press conference again because it's only going to bring back bad memories. I want to move forward. Chris says, what current player would you love to have an interview with? Yeah, I saw that Bobby and Justin got Andrew Thomas, which was awesome. I got to talk to them. I don't know how that happened. They were in like a bus. They went to like a bus for like rookie training camp, and they're like, "Hey, Andrew, Andrew talked to strangers. They got him on the bus." But no, that was awesome. Current Giant, because any Giant would probably be either LT or Eli Manning. It would probably be Eli for me because I didn't get a chance to really appreciate LT. But current Giant, it might be Andrew Thomas. Like, he'd be near the top for me. I mean, and you think about the rookies too. It would probably be a guy that I felt like was going to be in the long-term plans of this team. So it would either be Andrew Thomas, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, McKinney, one of those guys. One of the guys that I feel like are a potential cornerstone piece for this team long-term. One of those guys. Maybe Thibodeau. He's the rookie. The exciting rookie, or Neal. Bob says, I love the 5th-round pick Beaver out of Cincinnati. Linebacker boy plays angry. Yeah, Old Jolari is another one. G-Nation for sure. Yeah, I think he could be a big-time piece for this team long-term as well. I think Bob, my expectation for Beavers going in is going to be a special teamer, but that may change. It's not like Tate Crowder's a former last pick in the draft. So he could easily be, lose his spot to one of these other rookies we brought in. Most people seem to like the kid out of Indiana a little bit more, at least for this year's team. But Beavers certainly at least has an opportunity to see some action on the field this year for sure. And hopefully can develop into a starter. He's kind of limited. At least that's the book on him. He's not great in coverage, but in terms of being against the run and a downhill linebacker, he's good. So maybe he could potentially be a guy that replaces Martinez or something like that long term. Anthony, Matt, very much. Next year, cap goes to $100 million with cuts easily. See, this is a common misconception, and I hear a lot of people say this, Anthony. Everybody says $100 million, the cap next year. Let's pull up the cap real quick. Everybody says this, and I'm like, no. We're not gonna have $100 million. So I'm not trying to like spread false hope or get people upset, but let's take a quick look at the Giants cap. This is a projection off a spot track, and I hear this on Twitter all the time from people. Oh, the Giants are going to have $100 million. Giants are going to have this. Giants are going to have that. So right now, before cuts, the Giants are going to have $49 million in cap space, 49.7. And this is an estimation. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. This is based off a $218 million salary cap. This year, the salary cap is about 200 or whatever it is. I don't even know what it is. But this is based off a $218 million salary cap. Maybe it'll be a little bit higher. But as of now, they project us to have about $50 million in cap space. So then you say, okay, you could cut Leonard Williams. That's going to give you 18. Suddenly you're at about 68, approaching 70. You can make a small cut here. You can make a small cut there. Yada, 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 yada. So maybe you can get it up to 80, 85. But then what about all your rookies? So that's going to be about 13, 14 million. So that 80 all of a sudden is about 65. Then what if Dan Jones has a good year? And you have to franchise tag him. What if Saquon Barkley has a good year? You have to franchise tag him. So, and there's other players on the roster. What if you want to extend Andrew Thomas after this year? So I think a lot of people see that 100 million. And I'm not saying you, Anthony, but I think a lot of people see that $100 million number and they're like, oh, the Giants are going to be able to go out there and they're going to go on a spending spree and they're going to sign 4 huge guys and they're going to get this. No, I don't think that's the approach the Giants are going to take. I think they may sign 1 or 2 good pieces for this team. Similar to kind of what they did in 2019 or 2020, whatever year it was, when they got Martinez and Bradberry, 3-year deals. They were kind of second-rate free agents. I think they'll probably do something more along that line of thinking. I don't expect them to go out there and spend crazy like they did the previous year. And I don't think we're going to have when people say $100 million, I feel like people envision that as, oh, they're going to have $100 million to bring in outside free agents. That's not going to be the case. They'll be able to make a couple of smart signings. And I think And I think Shane's going to go about this the right way. I don't expect him to go out there and go on a spending spree, and he shouldn't. The best teams are not built through free agency. Let's see what we got. And Goblins, he says, if one or both of our quarterbacks were either traded or otherwise satisfactory out of the picture, how would you feel about us acquiring Baker Mayfield? Everybody loves Baker Mayfield. Let me just read this member chat. I'm going to get back to the Baker thing. NY Giants 26, man. Thank you for being a member for 16 months. It says, not a member for a month. Don't know why it says. No, it says 16 months on my end. I don't know why it says that. I like Fox is the undrafted free agent. Do you think we got the two best in the draft? James Bradberry to Philly, not scary. Do you think we got you mean the two best players in the draft? And I like Fox too. He had, I think he had 9 sacks. Well, North Carolina. So he's a guy to at least keep your eye on in terms of the undrafted free agents. You could at least make an argument that we got the two best players in this year's draft. I mean, we'll see. I mean, a lot of people would say Hutchinson. I think Trayvon Walker was a little bit overdrafted. I had Evan Neal as the best tackle, but who knows? I mean, we'll see how these players perform. But certainly 2 of the top 3, 4, 5 players in this year's draft, I think the New York Giants landed. So, yeah, I think that's certainly something to be really excited about. As far as Baker Mayfield goes, I mean, it's a pipe dream. It's not happening. It's just not happening. I mean, it's not happening. We have no money. We have absolutely zero money. And to me, and maybe you're referring to next year, I don't know. To me, Baker Mayfield, when I watch him, one, I don't think he's a great fit in New York. I just don't. I've really never thought that. After I saw, how he handled himself in the NFL, I just don't. I don't think he's a great fit for New York. And 2, he screams average to me. Do you want to spend money, decent money on an average quarterback? He's an average starting quarterback, and that's being nice in my opinion. But yeah, when he's healthy, he's an okay quarterback. But no, to me, I want to draft my quarterback if I'm not sticking with Daniel Jones next year. I would sooner give Daniel Jones a year or 2 than bring in Baker Mayfield. I would. I think Daniel Jones' ceiling is higher than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's ceiling is very low in my opinion. I want nothing to do with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was in quarterback heaven while in Cleveland. Quarterback heaven. He could win if you give him everything he needs to be successful. He can win games, but he's nothing special. Let's see. Dale, come on, man. Nah, take that back. Don't say that, man. I mean, I hate him. He's an Eagle, but don't say that, man. No, don't ever root for injuries. I hope so, Matt, man. Could we bring Odell back? Not this year. I mean, in the future, I'll never rule anything out. Bro, the Baker slander is crazy. When we have Jones as a quarterback, don't get any worse than him. Is Baker going to help win us the Super Bowl? If he's not, I don't want to pay him free agency money. Why would you crave to have the 20th best quarterback? That's what Baker Mayfield is, with no ceiling. I mean, he's not going to get much better than he already is. Like, what? Tell me one thing about Baker Mayfield other than the fact that he's a cheerleader that is a plus. Like, his arm strength's not plus. His mobility's not plus. His accuracy's not plus. What about Baker Mayfield screams, oh, this guy could potentially be a guy that could help us win a Super Bowl? To me, nothing. He's an okay quarterback. That's fine. There's a market for him. I don't want him. If he was on a rookie deal, okay. Not on a second contract. Let's see what we got. Neil says, some fans settle for mediocrity because of the last 5 years, but it takes time for us to be elite. Baker's average at best. Would rather take one of those stud quarterbacks next year. Yeah, exactly. I want Sandro Platzkummer to make this team. I doubt he does. I know a lot of people are going to be rooting for him. He's been on the roster for a while, but I don't think so. Now, to be fair, let me make sure I pronounce this right. Descent. Remember the hype for the 2018 quarterback draft class, which of course the New York Giants were picking second. A lot of people screamed. The hype was right. The hype was just wrong about which quarterbacks. So, I mean, like any draft class where you could get 2 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, they got Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. You can make an argument Josh Allen is the first or second most talented quarterback in the NFL. And Lamar Jackson's won an MVP. So the hype was right. Just the wrong quarterbacks. Sam Darnold didn't work out. Josh Rosen hasn't worked out. And Baker Mayfield hasn't worked out. But the other 2 did. Josh Allen, I think, is going to win a Super Bowl someday, and Lamar Jackson's obviously been very successful. So the hype was right. They were just wrong about which quarterbacks. Let's see what we got. Just heard Bradberry passed on 11 teams. Wow. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I'll have to take a look into that, but I believe it. I believe it if it's true. I have not looked into him, to be honest with you, Stagger. I have not looked into him. I saw somebody bring him up, though, on Twitter, but I have not looked into him. Smith says, after the draft and free agency signings, obviously outside of cornerback being our weakest position at the moment, what other positions do you feel we're lacking talent or depth? Linebacker, and we'll see how the rookies perform, but I definitely think linebacker long-term is still a need. Blake Martinez, I don't think is going to be here much longer. So I definitely think linebackers a need long-term. Safety, we'll see. Obviously, we drafted a safety in the 4th round. McKinney's obviously a nice player, but I think overall, just the secondary as a whole is going to need more help. But linebacker for sure. Hopefully the edge is pretty sewed up. Defensive line may have a hole as well because we may be cutting Leonard Williams next year. So we still have a lot of pieces on that defense that we need to sew up long-term. Offensive line, the tackles are great. I think we will not have to draft hopefully, if all goes according to plan, we'll not have to draft the 1st-round tackle hopefully for the next 10 years. That's the hope. Interior offensive line still probably going to need some help, obviously. I think we are going to need another wide. Like, we still have a lot of needs long-term, and hopefully we address them in next year's draft and we continue to build this football team. But I think there's going to be a lot of holes in that defense after you look past this season because there's at least a decent possibility Leo won't be here after next year. And even if he is, he probably won't be here the year after that. Adoree Jackson, probably another year after this, and then he's gone. Linebacker, like I said, long-term, definitely going to need to sew that up as well. So we're going to need 3 or 4 pieces in that defense long-term that we're hopefully could find in the draft. What's up, Rob? Man, thanks for popping in, man. And yeah, so I appreciate that, man. Spike the like, guys. If you're new, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell. I'm going to try to do these once a week during the dead times of the offseason. Maybe I'll have a guest on here and there. Maybe I'll have a couple subscribers on. I'm kind of waiting to have subscribers on until we have more to talk about, which will be like training camp, maybe a week before training camp. That's when we'll have a lot more to talk about. Right now, like the press isn't even open to these OTAs. That's why I haven't really made videos on it. I think it's kind of pointless. So probably like, I don't know, mid-July, I'll start having some subscribers on as video guest. So now Bradberry's, of course he's the enemy. He's a Philadelphia Eagle, man. Rob says, training camp's usually, I think the beginning, maybe like mid to late July, early August, if I'm not mistaken. Rob says, you sound mad scared of the Eagles, Chris. No, I'm not mad scared of anybody. To be scared, you have to go into a season with expectations of accomplishing like something really significant. Like this year to me, I'm being realistic about it. And I hope to be very pleasantly surprised. I'm going in hoping for progress over the course of the year. And if we win 9 games, that's fantastic. But that's not my expectations going into the year. Listen, until the Eagles get a quarterback, I'm not scared of them. not long term. Jalen Hurts don't scare me. Oh, not me, the chat. Yeah. Let's see. Any Music says, choose only one. Jets versus Giants Super Bowl or Yankees versus Mets World Series. I'd go Yankees versus Mets. I think the rivalry between the Yankees and Mets is stronger, not to mention it's potentially 7 games instead of 1. I'd love both, and I've already seen a Yankees versus Mets, but I think Yankees versus Mets, if I had to pick one, would be more heated. I know the Giants and Jets fans don't like one another, but I feel like the rivalry between the Mets and Yankees is much more deep-rooted, especially when you go back over the course of history with the Dodgers and the New York Giants, because that's where Mets fans come from. National League fans, before the Dodgers and the Giants went out to the West, they hated the New York Yankees. And obviously, Yankee fans, they like to tell you they don't hate the Met fan base, but most of them do. I think that rivalry is much more stronger than the Giants and the Jets. Goblins, man, thank you very much, man. Did you see Brian Robinson play for Alabama? I'm really surprised he went so low this year, even with all the fear around the position. The running back. Yeah. I remember. Where did he go? Where did Brian Robinson go? Let me see. Running backs in general, actually, a couple of them went earlier than I thought they would this year. You had what's his name went second round, the guy that Cook who a lot of people thought the New York Giants could potentially draft. Why I hate when I pull these up and I get volume. Where did Brian Robinson go? I don't remember where he went in the draft. He went to the commies. Let me take a quick look where he went. 98th? I mean, that was probably around where people expected him to go. That's like, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. That's where I thought. That's where I thought. That's where I thought you'd have a run of running backs, late third round, early fourth round. So no, I'm not surprised by that. There was a couple running backs who went a little bit earlier than I thought they would. He wasn't one of them. Is it true that the Jets and Giants are going to have to move their names? Yeah, I heard about that, Whitney. And thank you for popping in, Whitney. I heard about that. I'm not buying into it. I think it's nonsense. I think it's hogwash. They're suing to try to change the Giants and the Jets to change it, I think, from New York to New Jersey. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's a reason. There's a reason they stayed the New York Giants. Tradition, and obviously having the name New York adds value to the franchise. Otherwise, they would have changed to New Jersey. So I don't see that happening. I don't think it's going to happen. But if it is, I'll be a big New Jersey Giant fan, period. But I don't see it happening. Let's see what we got. I mean, the Giants should just listen, we all know the reason why the New York Giants aren't in New York. They had the option to potentially build a stadium, by the way, in Manhattan when they were talking about the new stadium, which I don't think most Giant fans are huge fans of MetLife Stadium. But I think there was two major reasons why they stayed in New Jersey. One, tailgating. Obviously, that's not the primary reason, but that was one of the reasons. It's much easier to tailgate in New Jersey as it is in Manhattan, which is where the talks were where they may potentially build the stadium. But two, the major reason, taxes. Taxes in New Jersey are a lot cheaper than they are in New York. And I think that's why the New York Giants are in Jersey. That's why they moved there in the first place. That's why I think they're going to remain there. I don't see them coming back to New York. Yeah, I mean, they could share stadiums with the baseball teams. They could. Giants should change their name to New Jersey. It's not going to happen. Willem says should move the stadium to Queens, Nassau, or Suffolk. They're not going to do that either. I don't think so. I'd be surprised if they moved to Long Island. What rookie do you see winning Rookie of the Year? Yeah, people have asked me this. I guess I have like more of a hot take than most, and this is before seeing them on the field and without knowing their roles in the offense. But I will come with a bit of a hot take here. My offensive, because when you look at the offensive Rookie of the Year, traditionally you're going to first look at the quarterback. Pickett, I suppose, has a chance, but I don't think he's going to start. I think they signed Trubisky for a reason, so I'm not going to say a quarterback's going to win. Then you look at the running backs. I do think Cook's in an ideal spot with Buffalo, but I don't know how much they're going to use him in the offense. I'm going to go with Watson. I think Watson, of the rookie wide receivers, got put in the best situation. He got put on Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, with a team that needs as much wide receiver help as they can get. I could see Christian Watson having a big year in his rookie year. So if I was going to pick one wide receiver, even though he went in the early second round, that's who I'll go with. That'll be my pick. No chance on Nakobe Dean. No chance. No chance on Nakobe Dean. I see a lot of people, a lot of Eagles fans now are telling me Nakobe Dean is going to be Micah Parsons. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. You ever stop and think that there's a reason Nakobe Dean dropped to 83? Do you think like every team was just dumb? Do you think they just went in the draft and said, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to pass on this all-world linebacker, this guy that's going to be the next Lawrence Taylor? Nakobe Dean dropped 83 for legitimate reasons. He's undersized, and the guy had significant red flags on his medical report. Maybe he'll be good, but he ain't going to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'll tell you that right now. I have Sky Moore. Where did Sky Moore end up? I don't remember. I know that the Giants passed on him, right? For Robinson. I don't remember where Sky Moore went. Sure, teams make draft mistakes, but you have to at least question why he dropped 83 spots. It's that the Eagles passed on him twice. Why? Why did he drop that far? And it's not like he's an unknown. He was a guy that was projected to go in the first round. Normally, and maybe I'm wrong. I haven't really thought about this. I'm not talking about a guy that drops in the first round that's supposed to go, say, top 5 and goes 25th, because you could give me several examples with that with Aaron Rodgers. But tell me that many scenarios where a guy that was supposed to be a mid to late first round pick that goes late third round that works out to be a great pro. I can't think of many off the top of my head. So there's a reason the guy dropped. Maybe he will be great. He could be. I know a lot of Giants fans wanted him. I wouldn't have been upset if we drafted him. But there's a reason the guy dropped. Let's see what we got. Who was better, Parsons or Thibodeau, when they were both coming out of the college system? It's pretty close. I mean, now, obviously, after we saw Parsons, you're going to say Parsons. But coming in, I think they're pretty comparable in terms of prospects. Different positions. Of course, they used Parsons off the edge last year, but he was drafted as a middle linebacker. But obviously, after we saw Parsons, you're going to say Parsons. But in terms of prospects, I'd say they're pretty comparable coming in. Pretty comparable. I'd probably slightly say Parsons was the better prospect. He was supposed to be a top 5 pick, and without the allegations, he probably would have went there, and that's really high for an inside linebacker. So he was really highly thought of. And that was in a rich quarterback draft class, too. Take that into account. Had there been good quarterback prospects in this draft, Thibodeau may have went 7 or 8. So probably slightly Parsons, but I think they're fairly comparable as prospects coming in. Obviously, I'm not going to put up those expectations that I think Thibodeau is going to match Parsons year 1. Yeah, I know they drop in the draft. And Sonny, I'll make you a friendly wager. What do you want to bet? I'll bet you whatever you want. I don't think he's going to win Rookie of the Year. He may be a good linebacker. There's a good chance he will be. I don't think he's going to be a great linebacker if I had to guess, but he may be a good linebacker. Definitely could be a good linebacker. And I'll tell you what, if the Giants took him at 83, I'd be excited too. But do I think he's going to be this otherworldly player? No, I don't. No, I think there's a legitimate reason why he fell to the late third round and why the Eagles, as well as every other team, passed on him. I think there's a legitimate concern about how good he could potentially be. It's not like a guy that came out of nowhere that dropped. You're talking about a guy that was really highly thought of, was in the forefront, played for arguably the best program in college football. He dropped for a reason. We'll see what that reason is. By the way, I loved the Eagles' first pick. I think Jordan Davis is going to be freaking awesome. And I love the Nakobe Dean pick where you got him. I'm just not setting it in stone that he's going to be a great player. Let's see what we got. I think Jordan Davis is going to be awesome for the Eagles, and I hate it. I had him penciled to going to the Eagles for the longest time. And then when I started to hear reports that the Ravens were going to get him, I was like, all right, maybe Baltimore will snatch it. But I knew you guys were going to take him. You guys love your interior defensive lineman. Fletcher Cox is on his way out. And I think Jordan Davis is going to be a beast for you guys. The only question that people bring up about Jordan Davis is he has, conditioning issues. At times he wears down throughout the course of a game. But that guy's a beast. And he's going to be a problem for the Giants for a while. Let's see what we got. Chris, top 3 teams in baseball? I mean, I'm biased, but I would say the Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets right now. I think Caveman's got a good shot at Rookie of the Year. I'm not, I would say he's one of the 3 or 4 favorites for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's in an ideal situation. He's going to get tons of playing time. He's going to play in an aggressive defensive scheme. So I think he's going to get his opportunities to get after the quarterback. So I think he's one of the 2-3 favorites to win, as he should be. He was the 5th overall pick. I would say, you know who I think is going to have a big year this year? Because I was thinking about it the other day. I was talking about it, I think in my Discord or on Twitter. I can't remember. But you know who I think is going to have a big year? Who is the guy? Who was the guy I was screaming about in 2000 and was it 18? Daniel Jones's draft. Who did I want with the 6th pick? Give me Allen. Allen. I think Josh Allen this year is going to have a huge year because now they got another edge rusher on the other side. I think he's going to benefit greatly from that. But we'll see. But I think of this year's rookie class, Thibodeau might be the favorite. I think he's certainly up there to potentially win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And Panda Man, thank you very much, man. I'm not afraid of Philly. Don Wink Martindale has something waiting for the offense coming out of Baltimore, practicing against Lamar with the similar defensive play style. My prediction is we sweep Philly and beat the Ravens. I love your prediction, and I pray that you're right, Panda. I do think we have a legitimate shot to split with the Eagles. And I know Eagles fans in here listening probably think I'm crazy. I do. I think we have a legitimate shot to split with them this year. I definitely don't think we're sweeping them. But I think we have a legitimate shot to split with them. Especially the main reason why I think I'm actually going to predict the split with the Eagles this year, and maybe I'll be completely wrong. I have to think that the Giants over the second half of the year are going to be playing better football than the first. They're a young team, new coaches, so I do think it's going to take some time, but I think they'll be clicking on they'll be playing as good as they possibly can if they're healthy the second half of the year. And I think last year, like you said, they demonstrated that they know how to play against the Eagles, at least defensively. And if they could duplicate that, and it will not be as easy, A.J. Brown now at wide receiver, understandable. But with the improvements to our defense, obviously the main one being Kayvon Thibodeau, we do have a question mark at the second cornerback spot. But Jalen Hurts doesn't scare me in terms of throwing the football. It's more his legs and forcing him to throw the football. I do think we have a legitimate shot to split with the Eagles, even though I'm picking the Eagles to win 10 games and win the division. I think we could beat them. I don't think they're sweeping us. I think we'll get a split. I'm not picking us against Baltimore. Everything shapes up wrong for that Baltimore game. Even though I understand the argument about Wink and how he's familiar with Lamar Jackson and he's familiar with the offense, we're coming back from London. We don't have a bye. We're playing them basically on short rest. That's the way I look at that. We're at a disadvantage to begin with, and Baltimore's just a better football team. Regardless of the advantage that some people may argue that Wink has against Baltimore, knowing the offense, being that he was the DC there for 4 years, you could just as easily argue the other way around. They're familiar with his defensive game plan. So I don't like that matchup at all. That's probably one of the 3 games going into the year where I have no doubt I think we're losing. And I'm picking us to lose others, but the 3 games where I'm like almost we don't have much of a chance, that's one of them. And I hope I'm wrong, but I don't like that matchup, especially coming back from London. I hate that matchup. Craig says, I think we beat I hope so, man. I would love to beat the Packers. If we ever beat the Packers, man. Fan base would get jacked up for that, Craig. Well, let me ask the chat. What do you think? I have the Colts, and I don't know what you guys consider upsets and what you don't. Outside of the division, because I don't ever really consider divisional games much of an upset, regardless of how the teams are. I always give a team a good opportunity to get a split in the division. Outside of the division, what potential upset do you see the New York Giants getting? For me, it's the Colts. And my main reason is similar to what I said about the Eagles. It's later in the year. I think the team will be playing better over the second half of the season. And we're at home. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think the Colts is the game that I could see us pulling an upset. Packers. A lot of people say the Packers. Packers. Let's see. Ravens. Okay. I said out of division. Tennessee or the Colts, Titans. See, the thing that scares me about the Titans game, and I hope we win, but the thing that scares me about the Titans game is you have a coach now that's been there for a number of years. It's kind of like when we played the Steelers when we first got Joe Judge, and I know it was a different scenario because we had the pandemic, so it was even more at a disadvantage going into that game, but we were playing a coach that had been there for a number of years, a team that didn't have a ton of turnover. I think it's similar to the Titans, and I think the Titans are obviously a better football team, so that's why it would be an upset. But it's on the road. It's Stable's first game. You're not going to have much familiarity. 2 new schemes on either side of the ball. New coach going up against Vrabel, who's been there for a while. If we played the Titans later in the year, I'd give us a decent chance to win. The fact it's game 1 on the road, I really don't like that matchup. I think the Colts are much more possible in terms of a potential upset. Matt, thank you very much, man. He says, I'm really worried once Sirianni starts watering and fertilizing JB, his roots might start growing down and pop up. Thanks for popping in, Matt. No way we beat the Colts with Ryan. I mean, listen, they're a better team, but I think because of when we play them in the year, the fact it's home, I give us a better chance to win that game than the Titans game, personally. But if you had to pick one game, you have the Colts, you have the Titans. Like, what would you consider a massive upset? Colts, Titans, Packers, Ravens. And is that it? Well, in terms of massive upsets? Maybe I'm forgetting a team. Vikings, maybe you could throw them in on the road. I think the Vikings are a pretty good team. It's on the road, so maybe you want to say them. But I think the Colts is the game I'd pick. Jalen is a poor man's Russell Wilson. I could agree with that. If by poor man you mean like, when you go to Manhattan and you see people on the street who are wearing clothes that look like they're 40 years too old, and they're lying, lying on a blanket in the middle of the street on 34th Street. If that is your definition of a poor man's Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson is like, Bill Gates, I could get on board with that. Because that's, in comparison to Russell Wilson, that's where I'd have Jalen Hurts. I'd have him a homeless man in Manhattan wearing 40-year-old hoodies, and Russell Wilson would be Bill Gates. So if that's your definition of a poor man's Russell Wilson, I could get on board with that. I could definitely get on board with that. Let's see what we got. Pretty spot on, Jack says. Yeah, like homeless poor, yeah. And Irish man, thank you very much. He says, has anyone heard of anything about fixing the turf issue? Our field needs to be fixed to eliminate injuries. I have not. I think it's something that needs to be talked about more, but I have not, and hopefully they do. I know I was talking to Patricia Traina like a month ago, and she said that they had changed it like 3 or 4 years ago, which I honestly wasn't even aware of, and they've still continued to have injuries. But obviously that's something that they need to look at. And logical banging. I'm trying to think of what illogical banging would look like. Logical banging. Thank you very much, man. Dane Belton, strong safety one. Don't sleep on him. I think he's got a shot. But I do think they're going to like Julian Love. He does fit. He's kind of a very versatile player. You can move him around. You can use him in a lot of different ways. But maybe Belton will get the opportunity to start out at camp. Drafted him in the 4th round, so we'll see. He's got a shot. We're thin at that position. Let's see. I mean, he might be better than DJ. I just would never compare Jalen Hurts to. Do you see me, Sean? Do you see me comparing Daniel Jones to Justin Herbert? Because to me, it's about as fair as comparing Jalen Hurts to Russell Wilson. If somebody said Daniel Jones is a poor man's Justin Herbert, I'd have the same response. So, let's see what we got. Oh, well, Jones is better than Herbert. Okay. And Jugs, man, thank you very much, man. If history is any indication, the wild card is fantastic. If history is any indication, the wild card is fantastic. What you're referring to? Football? I don't know what you mean by that. I'm trying to gather what you mean by that. I mean, nowadays, basically, everyone's a wild card outside of the number 1 seed now, because only one team gets a bye. I know there's divisional winners, but you play in the wild card round, which I actually like that change, because I think it puts more emphasis on getting the best overall regular season record. But I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. Maybe you mean baseball. I'm not sure. Here we go. As in for the well, yeah. Our last 2 Super Bowls, we snuck in. We won the division actually. I think, right? We won the division in our last Super Bowl. Our division sucked, but I think we won the division, right? 9-7. We beat out the Cowboys. The first Super Bowl with Eli, we had the wild card. That was the year where 3 teams in the division made the playoffs. Dallas won the division. Giants and Washington both got in. But I'm almost positive we won the division in 2011. Somebody asked me, Yankees or Mets? I mean, it's clearly the Yankees right now. They're 27-9. So it's the Yankees. Yankees are better. Right now, the Yankees are the best team in baseball. Renee says Eagles fans act like Bradberry made a huge change. They still got Hurts as their quarterback. And we'll see. I mean, I listen, I ragged on the Eagles all last offseason. I'll be the first to say I was wrong. I did not see them winning 9 games. I think that's what they won. They did. You can certainly argue they benefited from a weak schedule, but regardless, with that schedule, I did not think they were winning 9 games. I didn't think they were coming close. I thought they were going like 5 games. So I was wrong last year. So this year, we'll see if hopefully I'm wrong because I think they're going to win 10. But we'll see. Who did the Giants sign? I could go over it briefly, but they said they signed depth players. I don't think any of them are going to start. They signed 2 depth cornerbacks, both of which have connections to Don Martindale. I don't think they're going to start though. So, but I go over them again briefly. I went over them at the top of the stream though. If you want to watch it back. 9 and somebody said 9-7. Well, it's going to be 9-8 because it's a 17 game. I think. When you look at the schedules for these teams, like you look at the Eagles, for example, or the Cowboys, like I think it's going to take more than 9 wins to win this division because we play such bad divisions. Like we play the Jaguars, we play the Lions, we play the Bears, the Saints. I don't think are going to be great. Maybe people disagree with me on that. The Lions, like I don't know. I think 10. I think 10, maybe even 11 wins this division. I'm leaning towards 10 though. I'm going to be at the Met game, so I'm not going to watch the Warriors game. But if I was going to watch a game, I'd actually watch the Ranger game. I don't really care too much about the NBA playoffs when the Knicks aren't in it. I'll watch I'm sure I'll watch it, but when I can. But I'd watch the Rangers, even though I'm not much of a hockey fan because they're a New York team. No team will win more than 10 games in the NFC. I'd say 10. I think that's what I have. I think 10 is what I have. Saints made some good moves this offseason. We'll see. I don't know much about the Saints. I don't know. They have a new head coach. We'll see. We'll see how Winston does at quarterback. They still have a good line, though, so they got a chance to be decent. Y'all better hope the Saints are good. Oh, that's a good point, Chio. I forgot about that. I friggin' hate your general manager. I'll be the first. Like, I ragged on Howie Roseman up until 2020 because I thought he was doing a really bad job for you guys the last 2 years. Howie Roseman's done for a Giants fan, I'm pissed. He's done a good job. That trade he made with New Orleans, I don't know what the hell the Saints were thinking. Like, what did the Saints get in that trade? Like, I don't even remember who the Saints drafted. Let me take a quick look. The Saints drafted, they didn't even get a quarterback, so not that they should have taken one. They traded up again. They ended up with Chris Olave. Whatever it was, they ended up getting the 16th and 19th pick, I think it was. They got 2 first-round picks for one. And they gave the Eagles an extra first-round pick in a quarterback draft class that's going to be significantly better. And the Saints are going to be looking for a quarterback. So I don't know what the hell the Saints were thinking. So I thought it was a horrible trade by the Saints. I thought the Eagles ripped them off. And I hated that trade for the Saints. Hated it. If Jones had a phenomenal year, do we win the division? I mean, if you want to argue that the Giants have a shot at the division, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take Daniel Jones becoming a top. For the Giants to have a shot at the division this year, it's going to take a Derek Carr-like year at a minimum from Daniel Jones. Like that type of jump. That's why I showed those stats earlier. If he could have a Derek Carr-like year, 23 touchdowns, 14 picks, throw for nearly 5,000 yards. Maybe you want to say it's 4,300 yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 picks, but have a year similar to that, be big in the big moments, we have a shot. If a quarterback dramatically improves, it changes everything. It improves the rest of the team. And hopefully with the scheme and the offensive line, it does that. But I'm not going to go into the year projecting that. Drew Brees is not going to unretire. Drew Brees is done. Stagger, what I just said. I think that's what he's got to do. Mid to high 20s touchdowns, a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. They've got to win at least 8 games. You have to put yourself in a position not to draft a quarterback next year if you're Daniel Jones. So I would say 8 wins plus and a Derek Carr-like statistical year, something similar to that. I think that keeps Daniel Jones here for another year. Hey, Chris, the Wan'Dale Robinson pick is the best pick of the draft. I'm going to disagree with that because Wan'Dale is a great route runner with speed, which is going to make it hard for NFL corners to cover him. He may be a really good pick, and I hope he is, and I'm excited to see him play in a New York Giants uniform, and I do think with the creative scheme that we have, he could be very useful. We'll see. I do see some people going overboard, at least in my opinion, and I hope I'm wrong, with the Wendell Robinson praise. I see people comparing him to Tyreek Hill. I'm like, calm down. Tyreek Hill ran a 4.26, whatever it was. This guy ran a 4.46. By the way, Wendell Robinson has the smallest arms in the history of the NFL. I looked that up. That was an interesting stat. Kyler Murray, I believe, held that record before. He's got 27.5-inch arms, so he has some limitations. But I do think he'd be a really good player. I think we're going to use him similar to a guy like Cole Beasley. But obviously, he's a little bit more dynamic than that. But I think his main role is going to be in the slot. They're going to get creative with him in the offense. But calm down with the Tyreek Hill comparisons. I've seen people say that. Tyreek Hill's the most dynamic playmaker in the NFL. Our best pick, it's either got to be Kayvon Thibodeau or Evan Neal. I don't care where the picks were. Evan Neal was arguably the best tackle in this year's draft class. Kayvon Thibodeau was arguably the best edge rusher. They play more important positions. So it's got to be Evan Neal or Kayvon Thibodeau. I would argue Neal, but you could certainly argue Thibodeau. Both of them are well above Wendell Robinson, in my opinion. Well above him. Let's see. Mike told me to read his last comment. To be fair, Carr is better than Jones. The dude was in the MVP race in 2016, second place. Mike, I agree, but he needs to reach that type of level to remain on with the New York Giants. I'm not even telling you he's going to, but he has to. Well, we didn't draft Kadarius Toney this year. We were talking about this year's draft class, Ollie. Chris, do you know the rumor they are going to use him, Tyreek, because of Kafka? No, I know. That's what I just said. I've seen people talking about that on Twitter. I don't see it. I mean, they may use him to a certain extent, like Tyreek Hill, but he's not Tyreek Hill. Like, no, he's not Tyreek Hill. What's going on there, Nicky Sadman? Let's see. Oh, what did Raphael say? Something? Let's see. What did Raphael say? Thoughts on? He was asking you about Fisk. I didn't even see Fisk take. Why did Fisk talk about Wendell Robinson? I didn't even see that. I've just seen people over Twitter talking about Tyreek Hill. I just disagree with it. They're completely different receivers. Toney would compare to Hill more. Yeah, I don't even think he compares to him, but I think that's more of a fair comparison. But I don't even think he compares to him. The other thing I'll say, and again, the things I like about Wendell Robinson, when I see he's a polished route runner, in my opinion, more so than Toney was coming out. But the one thing I'll say, like when people compare him to Tyreek Hill, all you have to do is look at Wendell Robinson's highlight clips, and he could be really good. Is Tyreek Hill getting caught from behind when he catches a football? There was like 4 highlights in his highlight clip where I saw a guy come from 10 yards behind Wendell Robinson and go and tackle him before he got in the end zone. If Tyreek Hill has a step on you, he's gone. He is gone. He's a different breed. So it's just silly to compare the two, in my opinion. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope he is Tyreek Hill. But he could be. I think he could be really good. My favorite sleeper pick. That's fair, Lit Savage, in terms of his elusiveness. That's fair. That's more fair. I could get on board with that. That's more fair. My favorite sleeper pick for the Giants, I mean, I think Bellinger. I mean, I don't know what you like sleeper. I'm assuming you mean like day 3 pick. If I had to say my favorite day 3 pick, I would say Bellinger. Just in the sense that I think he'll be the biggest immediate contributor, but a lot of people would say McFadden, linebacker out of Indiana. Most people would probably say him. A lot of people like Dane Belton as well. I would say Bellinger is my personal favorite day 3 pick. He's the type of tight end I was looking for the New York Giants to get, and it at least seems like he has some athletic upside. He ran a 4.63 40. So I'd go with him, but there's a couple of guys that I could see being pretty good contributors for the Giants. Those 3 guys in particular, day 3. Azudu I like. The more I've looked into him, again, I don't think he's going to start day 1, but I think Azudu could be a really good guard for the Giants in the future. So I like him too, but he's a day 2 pick. I'm here to say when the season approaches, Robinson will be one of your favorite players on the team. Really have that. I'm excited to see Robinson. I just don't want to set the expectations to Tyreek Hill levels. Like Tyreek Hill is like arguably the best receiver in the sport. If not, he's definitely top 5. So I don't want to set those level expectations. If he does it, great. And I know some people may say, well, Tyreek Hill went in like the 4th or 5th round, but he didn't go in the 4th or 5th round due to his playing ability. It was because of the off the field stuff. So I mean, I hope, and I am really excited to see what Kafka could do with a player like Wendell Robinson and a player like Kadarius Toney. They're definitely guys that you could get creative with. Tyreek Hill stuff is just it's a little much. It's a little much. Let's see. Nikki says, Chris, if I had to bank on one draftee hiring, it would be Bellinger. Number 2 would be Neal. What do you mean, Nikki? In terms of being like the safest picks, you would have Bellinger. You think Bellinger's a safer pick than Neal and Thibodeau in terms of being productive, unless I'm reading that wrong. I do think Bellinger's going to be a contributor day one for the Giants. I do. I think he's going to be an immediate contributor for this football team. After the draft, when I looked at it, I think obviously Neal's going to be an immediate contributor. I think Thibodeau's going to be an immediate contributor. I think Bellinger will be an immediate contributor, and I think Wendell Robinson will be an immediate contributor. Outside of that, I'm not sure, but I think those 4 will make immediate contributions to this football team. Azudu, who knows? He'll be in competition for the guard spot. But I would say those 4 guys will be immediate contributors. Yeah, I just didn't say Wandell because he's a 2nd round pick, like an early 2nd round pick. So I was thinking more day 3 guys. I'm more into drafting players than free agent. I want our team to be able to develop guys like when Coughlin was here and he had such a great. Well, that's where it starts, Skyler. I mean, you go back and look at it. I mean, I did a video with Justin from Talking Giants where we talked about the greatest Giant draft classes of all time. And I mean, like, let me pull it up for you right now. I mean, you look at the New York Giants 2003 draft. Like, look at the players they got in these drafts. I mean, 2000, these were consecutive drafts. 2003, the New York Giants got Osi Umenyiora at pick 56. They got David Deal at pick 160. I mean, the guy was what, like a 3-time Pro Bowl lineman for the Giants, was part of that great offensive line. They got him in the 5th round. And David Tyree, who obviously came up with a big contribution for the Giants. They got him in the late 6th. 2004, you get Chris Nee in the 2nd round at 34. Again, a multi-time Pro Bowler for the New York Giants. Jabril Wilson was a pretty good contributor. So that was a decent draft. You got 2 pretty good contributors for that football team. And, of course, you got Eli Manning. So 2003, 2004, I mean, you got your franchise quarterback. You got 2 franchise linemen in those drafts. So, yeah, that's where we built our team. 2003, 2004, 2005. We had 4 picks in 2005. 4 picks. 75% of those picks were huge contributors. 3rd round, we didn't have a 1st round pick. 2nd round, we got Corey Webster at 43. 3rd round, we got Justin Tuck at 74. 4th round, we got Brandon Jacobs at 110. That's where it started with those Super Bowl teams. 3 years in a row. Hit. Then it got a little questionable. I mean, Matthias Kiwanuka was decent. But, of course, that was at pick 32. Barry Cofield was a pretty good contributor as well, but not huge contributors. But those 3 years were huge for the growth of that football team. And then, of course, the 2007 draft, even though there weren't any huge contributors long-term, outside of maybe you could argue Bradshaw, Ross was a decent corner. They all contributed to that Super Bowl season. So that team, Steve Smith as well, I think was in 2007. So that team certainly was built mainly through the draft. Dave Gettleman was the head scout and a big. I agree with that. That's why I had as long as the leash as I did with Dave Gettleman. Gettleman was a big part of those drafts. He was one of the, I think, head scouts for that team. Yeah, we hit home runs on a lot of those. Manningham was 08. Yeah, Manningham was what, 3rd round, and he fell because of, I think he had somebody let me know in the chat. I think Manningham, if I remember correctly, had like some kind of red flag. He had like off the field stuff because he was supposed to go at least 2nd round. He dropped further than people expected him to. He had some kind of red flag. I can't remember what it was. Family of the Mike says, look at the receivers we got late in the draft. Steve Smith, Nix, Randall, Manningham. Well, Nix was a 1st round pick. Manningham was a 3rd round pick. Cruz, of course, was an undrafted free agent. Steve Smith, I think, was a 3rd round pick. But Nix was a first-round pick in fairness. But the others, yeah, we're great value. Did I like David Wilson? Yeah, I was excited when we drafted David Wilson. He was an exciting player, but obviously the injury, we never really got to see what he could turn into. The one thing about David Wilson early on, the guy, he had fumbling problems, and Tom Coughlin couldn't stand that. He fumbled I think twice in his first game on a punt return. He had fumbling problems. Brian Dable says, I love seeing all the tweets from last year from Eagles fans saying Bradberry's overrated and burnt toast. Yeah, Victor Cruz was undrafted. It's why I always say wide receiver, you could get value at that position. You can. I mean, just look over the history of drafts. I'm not saying, you get a guy like Jamar Chase. He's a huge difference maker, but you can get value at that position. The Giants have done it. Every team has done it that has been successful. You can get wide receivers later in the draft. We'll tie the greatest Giant ever. Like right now, if you look at name your top. Let me look at the top receivers in the NFL right now. I'm just curious. If you look at the best wide receivers in the NFL right now, Cooper Kupp was what, a second round, third round pick? I don't think he was a first round pick. Jefferson maybe I think he was a back end first because the Eagles could have taken him. They didn't. He was a back end first. Adams was a second round pick. Jamar Chase first. Debo second. Tyreek Hill was a fifth. Stephon Diggs was a third or a fourth. I don't think Keenan Allen was a first round pick. I don't think maybe he was, but I don't think Chris Godwin was a first round pick. Higgins was a second round pick. Pittman was a second round pick. Terry McLaurin was a third or a fourth round pick. I don't know when Renfro was drafted, maybe the third or the fourth. I'm just looking over yardage, by the way, last year. So, I mean, you just look at the best wide receivers in the sport. I mean, a lot of them are not drafted in the first round. And I didn't even mention Michael Thomas, by the way, who obviously didn't put up any yards last year because of injuries. He was a third or a fourth round pick. Tudo, he says, Chris, please make it an official and let all the boys losers know we will all be at the Lincoln December 4 Giants game. Pull up and show up. Let's go, man. Let's go. Tudo, man, maybe I'll go. If the Giants are doing well this year, I will go to the Link this year. I promise you. So hopefully they do. That's the last game of the year, somebody said earlier, right? I will make this promise right now. If that is a big game for the Giants in terms of making the playoffs, which probably won't be, but if it is, I will show up to the Link week 18. Let's see. OBJ, of course, was a first round pick. But I was just going over the stat leaders from last year. You got season 10. I'm assuming you're an Eagles fan, Sean. That's awesome. I mean, it's not you root for a horrible football team, but that's okay. I appreciate you being here. Fan with Mike says best wide receiver in the game was 4th overall in 2020. Yeah. Andrew Thomas. Jalen Hurts is so much better than your. Here we go. What if we have a chance to knock out I mean, I would love that. No, I'm not. I mean, listen, I'm not driving to Philadelphia if the Giants are a 4 or 5 win team. No, I'll watch the game. I'll watch the game from home. But if we're playing well, I will go to that game. By the way, how many Giants fans have been to the Link before? I know Tudo has. Because I've never been. And I'm curious to see if what they say is true. Because from what I've heard, the Link is a mean place to go. if you're a fan of one of the opposing teams. I've been to several Giants games at MetLife. Never gotten that vibe for the most part. Of course, you're always going to have a fan here, a fan there. But is it as bad as it is perceived when you go to the Link as an opposing fan? Because, I mean, we all know the reputation with the Eagles fans. They booed Santa Claus. They had a jail inside of the stadium. Their fans ate shit after they won a Super Bowl. But I've never been to the Link. I've never been to the Link. I went. The Eagles were nice. Okay. Sebastian says, yeah, I went. I was 10 years old wearing a Giants jersey. Still got a ass being 10. Uh, the fans are crazy. I can't wait for Tibbs to give Hurts a smackdown. I sure hope so. I mean, I'm assuming it's bad just based off what I've heard, JD. But I've never been. Let's see. They let you know they know how to properly spell Eagles. Pretty impressive. Gabe, man, what's up, buddy? He says Freddie Kitchens. Oh, did he? So Freddie Kitchens now is the South Carolina Gamecocks head coach, so he could ruin their offensive playbook. That's cool, man. You can't stand Dallas fans; they're not welcome at the link. I can't stand Dallas fans either. Rooting for Bradberry to get burnt is going to be hard for me. Why? I always find that funny, and I feel like I don't know, maybe it's like the new age fan or like more player friendly than they've been in the past. I never got that. If anything, it's easier for me to root for Bradberry to fail now. The fact that he chose the Eagles after leaving the New York Giants, like once you leave the Giants, man, you pick the Eagles. No, man, you're public enemy number one. I'm gonna have no problem every week rooting my ass off for James Bradberry to get embarrassed. At the end of the day, James Bradberry got a ton of money from the Giants. He saw $35 million over his 2 years with the Giants. He got paid. He had a really good year for us in 2020, and he had the freedom to choose wherever he wanted to go, and he chose the Eagles. I have no problem rooting for James Bradberry to get absolutely destroyed next year. But that's just me. See, to me, he didn't choose the $10 million because here's I mean, maybe I'm wrong, Cecil, but the way I look at it is this. And again, I get it from the perspective that he would have maybe rather chosen the team he went to. But there were reports that came out that several teams worked out a trade with the New York Giants. Had that happened, he's getting his $10 million, fully guaranteed. Okay? Because he was due $21 million this year. The Giants saved $10 million by cutting him. He would have gotten that money had he been traded to another team. He turned down several trade opportunities according to Jordan Renan, not just one. I know we heard Houston specifically, but several trade opportunities to become a free agent because he knew the New York Giants were going to cut him. And I know that potentially hurt his free agency value because it happened later in the process. But no, he could have gotten more money not to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. With the Eagles at $7.5 million guaranteed, with the possibility if he plays like an All-Pro to reach $10 million. So it's not the way I look at it. He was getting that money. He was getting that money no matter what. Had he accepted one of those trades that supposedly were ready to go through, but Bradberry was not willing to work out an extension with the teams. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to play for the Houston Texans, but it wasn't only about money. Allison, thank you very much. Hey, Chris, do you have a way too early 53 man mock? Yeah, I'll probably have a video once training camp gets going. I'll probably do. I always do a video like that. So once training camp gets going and we know all the players that the New York Giants have brought in, because of course you saw today they signed a couple of guys. Once probably like mid to late July. But I did a roster breakdown video like a week ago, and I mean I basically told you. I mean there was about 38 to 40 guys that I think without injuries, which of course could always happen, that I think stand a really good chance to make this team. Obviously the 11 guys we drafted, so that leaves 42 spots after that. I think all of them will make the team. And then, I mean, you got Daniel. I think the quarterback is set in stone. Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor. That's 2. The running back room, Barkley, Breida. And I think probably, is probably a fight between 3 or 4 different running backs for that last spot. I think we'll probably go with 3 running backs. Maybe we'll go with 4 due to special teams purposes. Corbin, I think, has at least a legitimate shot to make it as an undrafted free agent. Wide receiver, as of now, if we don't trade Darius Slayton, I see Galladay, I see Tony. Obviously, I see Wendell Robinson, Shepard. Darius Slayton for sure will make the team if he's not cut or traded. So that's 5. And then I see probably we brought in the guy from the 49ers. I always forget Richie James. He's a special teamer, but I think he'll make the team due to he's a good punt returner, which is why I think we brought him on to begin with. And I think there's somebody I'm forgetting about that CJ Board, who we brought back, known as a special teamer. I would probably say he's wide receiver 7. If we go with 7, those would be the 7 I'd predict. But we'll see what happens in camp. But those would be my projections right now. Tight end, I think we're going with 3. I think we'll go with the guy from Houston that we brought in, Ricky Seals-Jones, and obviously Bellinger, who we drafted in the 4th round. That would be my guess. Offensive line, obviously our 2 starting tackles with Neal and Thomas. Interior, you got Feliciano, you got Garcia. Why does the name escape me right now off the top of my head? The guy we brought in, our biggest free agent acquisition. But him, who we're paying $6 million a year, I think that'll probably be your starting offensive line. Then you've got the 2 rookies from North Carolina, Zudu and the other guy, McKeithen, I think it is, from North Carolina. I think those guys are locked in. So I think those 7 offensive linemen are probably locked in. Then you got the guy we brought in from Glowinski. There you go. He's obviously going to start. And then you got Gano, the swing tackle that we brought in from the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's got a good shot to make this team, especially being that Matt Parrott's going to start on the PUP. And then I think there's a couple of guys competing for that last spot, Shane Lemieux being one of them, if they go with 9 offensive linemen. The defense, the defensive line's pretty cut and dry. There's a number of guys competing on the interior part of the defensive line that we brought in. Obviously, you're going to have Dex. You're going to have Leonard Williams. Linebacker, I think both rookies we drafted will make it, along with Blake Martinez, along with Tate Crowder. On the outside, we went over all the edge rushers earlier, and there's a couple of guys in the secondary. But, yeah, I think there's if I had to guess going in when I really looked at it before I did that video, I think there's 38 to 40 guys that I'd be shocked if they don't make the roster. And then there's maybe for the final 13 to 15 spots, there's maybe 25 guys competing for those final 13 to 15 spots. And I wouldn't be shocked if there's 4 undrafted free agents that make this team, because I think there's going to be a lot of competition. Nobody, Joe Schoen has no commitments to any of these guys from the prior regime. So we'll see who makes it, but there's going to be a lot of interesting camp battles. I think the starting guard spot will be interesting. The starting second cornerback spot is going to be interesting. The middle linebacker could potentially be interesting. The tight end could be interesting. The back end of the wide receiving core could be interesting. So there's going to be a lot of interesting camp battles. The running back, the 3rd running back on the roster. So those will definitely be some things that I'm excited about going into camp. So I tried my best off the top of my head. Let's see what we got. But I'll do a more in-depth video before training camp. Red Rich, he says, most right tackles are not as good as the left tackles. So do you think it would be better to line Kayvon up at right tackles to maximize his abilities? I think it's circumstantial. It depends on what team you're going up against. But yeah, teams do that pretty consistently in the NFL. But the thing I could say, Rich, is, it depends. You could argue that if they're going to double team Kayvon Thibodeau, maybe you want to put Azeez Ojulari on the other side because he gets a one-on-one opportunity against a weaker offensive lineman. Maybe you maximize his ability that way. So I think it's circumstantial. It depends on the matchup and how the opposing offense is playing you. But today in today's NFL, you see teams constantly switch things up throughout the course of the game. Guys rarely stay on the same side all game on defense. Obviously, on offense they do, unless you're Joe Judge and you do the musical chairs throughout the course of the game. Irish man, thank you very much, man. Chris, can you see Tricia? I'm going to, at least I'm hoping to. Yeah, if they, not after a mini camp, I don't think, but after, and I'm going to be on her channel soon, but after training camp, I'm going to meet up with her for sure. So I'm looking forward to that. But I don't think after mini camp, but in training camp, I'm going to, yes. And maybe we'll do something. Maybe we'll do a live, I don't know. We'll do something. And supposedly Patricia said she's going to try to get me on the field. So that'd be awesome. I'd live stream it for you guys if I do get that opportunity. Yeah, Sills has it. Allison, I guess Sills has a chance to crack the back end of the roster, but I think the wide receiving core, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to crack it. But he's got a chance. What's up, Brandon, man? Thanks for popping in, man. I think I answered this earlier, Danveer, but it's hard for me to come up with one name. But I guess right now it'd be Kayvon because he's the guy that I think most Giant fans would be excited about. But it would be a cornerstone piece. It would be Thomas, Neal, Kayvon, one of those 3 probably. Maybe McKinney, but one of those guys. Danny Boy says Eagles still mid. An older cornerback does not make them good. Here's what I'll say. I think it improves their team next year, but Bradberry's a short-term fix. He's a one-year guy. We'll see if he's there past next year. I do see a lot of Eagles fans on Twitter, I think, overhyping their cornerbacks. Because the way I look at the Eagles cornerbacks going into this year, it is definitely a dramatic improvement. They had a big weakness on the opposite side of Darius Slay. So it is a big improvement. I'm not trying to downplay the significance of the move for them. But the way I look at the Eagles secondary this year, because I've seen Eagles content creators, I've seen Eagles fans on Twitter say it's top 5. And I'm like, this is basically the same cornerback duo we had last year. Maybe a little bit better, but it's not like Darius Slay is significantly better than Adoree Jackson. He's better. And we had Bradberry. You could argue that Bradberry could be at least slightly worse than last year. We saw that Bradberry last year started to lose a step. I understand Bradberry's going to be the cornerback too now, but I think it's a little crazy to say that the Eagles have a top 5 cornerback duo. It's good. And it's an improvement over what they had, but I think you got to pump the brakes a little bit on saying that they're a top 5 cornerback duo in the NFL. He's better, Chio. He's better. I don't think he's incredibly better. Adoree Jackson's a good corner. Adoree Jackson's a solid corner. He's better. But I don't think like it's a significantly better duo than the one the Giants had last year. Adoree Jackson was good for the Giants last year. He's a good player. Who in the East taking the most sacks from Tibbs? Which quarterback? Oh wow. That's a good question. I'll go Hurts. Even though the Eagles have a good offensive line, I think they arguably have the best offensive line in the division. I just think Hurts will run into a couple of sacks. You know what I'm saying? Like he's the type of a quarterback that he'll run into a couple of sacks. So I'll go with Hurts. I think Dak gets the ball out pretty quickly. Maybe Wentz takes a lot of sacks historically, doesn't he? Wentz takes a lot of sacks historically, if I'm not mistaken. And if he does, maybe I'd go with Wentz. But just because of the type of quarterback Hurts is, I think it lends itself to more sack opportunities. Not even like downplaying the Eagles' offensive line. I would say either Wentz or Hurts. I don't think Dak. But I think Wentz historically does take a lot of sacks, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. The Dallas offensive line is definitely not what it was. I'll say that. Oh, here we go. The Eagles fans are partying. Hey, man, I don't blame you. If I was an Eagles fan, I'd be excited too. Michael says, Eagles made all these moves to still have Hurts at quarterback. Here's what I'll say, man, and you know I'm not a fan of Hurts. I don't think Hurts is the long-term answer there. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. But I do think the Eagles made the right decision sticking with Hurts because this just wasn't the year to take a quarterback. It just wasn't. So I think it would have been a mistake by the Eagles to force a quarterback pick, whether that be Pickett, Malik Willis. He's still really cost-effective. You could get by with him. They proved that last year. They have a good line. They have a solid running attack. You get by with him. You could still have a decent to good year with Jalen Hurts. But long-term, he's not the answer. Let's see. Skeptic says, Chris, what are you drinking? There's nothing in the water. No, there's still a little bit. You see? There's still a little bit. I'm going to finish it now. And now I'm going to have my next water bottle. I'm going to end this in like 5 minutes, guys. I'm going to the Met game. My friends picked me up at 4:30, so I wanted to do this till about 4:10-ish. So we'll go for another 7 minutes. Chris, go get a new bottle. It's right here. I got a new bottle. So, Chris, who do you got? I got them between 6 and 8, the Giants, because their schedule is so soft. I got us between 6 and 8. Had the Giants been playing the same schedule as last year, I probably would have said 5. But their schedule is so soft. I got us between 6 and 8. I think. And I also think the Giants can't have as many injuries as they had last year. Like they got decimated with injuries last year. I think 6 is if we stay relatively healthy. Worst case for me, 8 is best case, and that's why I got us at 7. I'm predicting 7. Chris, we will surprise people this year. I hope so, Boogie, man. I really do, man. I want us to go out there and win 17 games. And Pop Exotic says top 5 Giants players right now on the roster. It's hard for me to say they're top 5 before they play, but I mean, we have a completely new roster overall. All right, here's what I'll say. I'll give you the top 5 Giants long term, and then I'll give you the top 5 Giants right now. Top 5 Giants long term: Andrew Thomas, Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal, Xavier McKinney, and I'm trying to think of the fifth. I probably Azeez Ojulari, I would say, is probably the 5 long term. Right now, just because they haven't played yet, I'm not going to put the rookies on there yet, even though I think they're going to be really good. But I won't put Evan Neal on there yet. I won't put Kayvon Thibodeau on there yet. I would say top 5 Giants right now. I would go Azeez Ojulari is on there. This is in no specific order. Azeez Ojulari, Xavier McKinney, Leonard Williams, Andrew Thomas. That's 4. And the 5th one, I'm not going to say Martinez because he's coming off an injury. I'll say Adoree Jackson. I'll say those 5. I'll say Adoree Jackson. I'll say Leonard Williams. I'll say Azeez Ojulari, Andrew Thomas, and who am I forgetting? I said somebody else. But at 4 on the defense, 1 on the offense. Kadarius Toney, I'm at OTAs. That's awesome, man. Not off last year, he's not. I'm basing last year's production, not off last year. Daniel Jones, I was actually considering Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is my top 6 or 7 Giants. I know some people are going to hate me for saying that, but I believe that. He's definitely my top 6, 7, 8 Giants. That's not saying much because we don't have a ton of talent, especially when you don't factor in the rookies and the younger players. But I think Jones is in my top 6 or 7 Giants. I was considering him. Saquon, I think, will be, but I got to see him play this year. But based off the last 2 years, I can't put him in there. But I think he will be by year's end. I think he will be. I think he's going to have a big year. Yeah, I did, Boogie. I did see the interview that Bobby did. I mean, all right, well, who are you? I mean, I'm not putting him over Andrew Thomas. I think Andrew Thomas would have probably made the Pro Bowl last year at tackle had he not gotten hurt. So I'm not putting him above Andrew Thomas. I'm not putting him above Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams has played at a Pro Bowl level before. I know Giants fans don't like him because of the contract and the trade. I'm not putting him above Leonard Williams. You could put him above Azeez. I could definitely see the argument for over Azeez. I could see an argument for top 4 Giants. I think that's fair. I think Leonard Williams and Andrew Thomas are definitely above him. And then I'm trying to think of the other. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully he has a great year. I hope he has a great year. Let's see. Yeah, crazy they got him in the van is right, Robinson. I'm stoked at how excited Kenny Golladay is for the. I think Golladay could have a good year. I don't know if it's going to be great, but I think he could have he better have a much better year. This coach and GM are great. Playoffs 2023, Rook shine, Jones lights out. John, I say it all the time. To me, that's the best case scenario for the Giants this year. Is Jones proves he's worthy of pushing forward with, because you draft the quarterback, you're looking at 2024 best case scenario. So that's what I'm hoping for. Best case scenario for me this year is Jones takes a big step up. We have more confidence in him as a franchise and a fan base to push forward with. And you continue to build the rest of this football team in 2023. I still don't necessarily think I'm going to be on board with getting him a long-term extension until he backs it up again. But I think that's best case scenario this year. Is Jones proves to be worthy of pushing forward with. And this team, improves and steadily gets better over the course of the year. And then you put the finishing touches on it to hopefully be a true, competitor from within the NFC conference going into 2023. But obviously Jones has to take a big step. That's best case. Yeah, I thought a lot of people said that. I always said it, and I got the proof in the pudding. I gotta find it, but I always said that I thought that he was gonna end up with the Eagles. Unfortunately, I said it on May 9th. Yeah, I said, here's the hoping Bradberry does not end up with the Eagles or Cowboys. My gut tells me it's going to very likely, especially being that it's Anita there, is not to mention the Giants dragged this out. I think that had something to do with it. I think the fact that they dragged it out. I think the fact that the Eagles needed him desperately. He's familiar from within in the division, obviously over the last 2 years with the Giants. I thought the Eagles made a lot of sense from a revenge standpoint, from a fit standpoint. So I always thought it was going to happen. I know a lot of people talked about Patrick Graham. Let's see. Imagine if we do win both game 1 and 2. I mean, if we win game 1, we're probably going to start 2-0. I think we're going to beat Carolina at home, but we'll see. But guys, I am going to close this out. It's 4:10. There's not a whole lot to talk about right now, but I said Wednesday, and it kind of just fit with the news that came out, obviously, about James Bradberry and some of the minor signings that we made. I figured I'd go live today. I'll probably be live next Wednesday. Hopefully some more stuff comes out that we can talk about. This is the slow time of the offseason, and I know that as a Giants fan. You know that as a Giants fan. Maybe I'll start to have some guests on in like 2 or 3 weeks when there's more stuff to talk about. But I appreciate everybody hanging out. Hopefully the Mets get a win for me tonight. It'd be nice. First Met game I'm going to this year. But have a good one, guys. Appreciate it. And General Booty, that is a crazy name. I think he transferred to Oklahoma.